Yeah. Going vegan limits your selection in these places pretty heavily. Well, oh well, I'll work it out. Looks like the avocado and Middle Eastern salads don't have any kind of cheese or whatever. Probably get one now, one later. Maybe worthwhile to examine the philosophical bases of such things as veganism and such. Go ahead. Oh, well, good thing nobody joined. I'm making sure my avocado wrap has no Parmesan cheese in it. They actually said they can make a fresh avocado wrap and leave out the cheese. So okay, I'm all for it. Probably not the way to lose weight, but I suspect take substantial medical intervention in order for anything like that to happen. Oh, one commotion. I'm at Chocolatte trying to be vegan where a great deal of cheese is served. I've decided I need to take on Dianic Wicca in order to combat the transphobia there. Go ahead. I'm going to prove Diana does not exist. There you go.
Hey, so if you're going to be going against Dianic Wicca, um, one, you might have a lot of pagans on your side. Two, uh, going about it by proving that Diana doesn't exist isn't really going to do very much because there's a lot of Dianic Wiccans that are atheists. So uh, it's it's not really going to.
That
If you're
sounds
going
like it
to,
could.
so what?
That sounds like it could get awkward.
Well, if you have an atheist Dianic, uh, she's using Diana in a way that's very similar that the Satanic Temple uses Satan. Does that make sense?
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to deal with my headset messing up. Yeah, it will take some preparation and investigation and such as more of the process of what I was saying than just, oh, here's my argument against Diana Quinta. Go ahead.
Yeah, as I mean, the thing with Dianic Wicca is that it's also kind of an umbrella, and different covens operate in their own way. It's also it really is a reason why people don't really attack paganism online is because there's not really a united front about what it means or what it is. And like I'm one representation of paganism. On Google Hangouts, I'm often the only representation of paganism. There's like three others, but they're not online anywhere near as much as I am. Um, but my brand of paganism is also a huge minority within the pagan community. So attacking me or disproving me doesn't necessarily do anything. Attacking Dianic Wicca, you can hit Dianic Wicca pretty hard, and by saying that Diana doesn't exist, but it doesn't do anything to the
Oh, really?
broader Dianic Wicca. And she's running away. It's funny. There's a place called Chocolatte really close to me, and I go there a lot. But someone's going to steal this laptop. How you doing, Concussed?
Yeah. I don't expect it to really apply directly to you. So I'm kind of like you would be the one who.
No. I'm not saying that it would apply to me.
Sorry.
I'm not saying it would apply to me. I'm using myself as an example of saying, she's taking off her headset again. Hey, all right. I'm using myself as an example of saying, hey, I'm one pagan. People don't generally attack paganism, but when they do attack me, it doesn't really affect all paganism. Attacking one aspect of Dianic Wicca doesn't necessarily combat all of Dianic Wicca unless you attack the ideas rather than the god. So saying Diana doesn't exist affects some Dianics, but not all of them, because a lot of them are atheists. So you can say that the ideas put into Dianic Wicca are incorrect, and here's why. Like the effects of the beliefs that they have would be the problem, rather than just going against the god.
Okay, so apparently Dianic Wicca is itself a broad enough umbrella. I mean, I might not be able to kind of have a one-size-fits-all whole Dianic Wicca debunking argument or anything like that. I'll grant that, sure.
The debunking argument would have to be based. What I'm saying is it wouldn't be rooted in proving the goddess is fake, because a lot of them accept that. But if you go into the ideas that are usually preached by Dianic Wicca, that would be the combating method. When you take off your headphones, I'm assuming you're not able to hear me.
Oh, the headset's not really making a Bluetooth connection, so you're coming over the speakers a little hard. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's a problem then, isn't it? Do you have a wired headphone? You might need to get a wired one.
Oh, well, there's physical damage to this one, and I guess also the Logitech. So, I mean, basically just replacing them and trying to avoid damaging them is probably a better strategy. So, anyway, go ahead.
Got it. Anywho, to say again, the strategy of going against Dianic Wicca would be against the ideas that it perpetrates rather than the concept of the goddess.
Well, I'm not shy in the least about going after less concrete ideas like libertarianism, retributive justice, capitalism, so on.
And going against Dianic Wicca would be very similar to combating one of those ideas. You'd be breaking it down according to its concepts rather than demonstrating its beliefs are not true, or that the religious aspect of it is not true.
Okay. Well, I mean, in that respect, I mean, it might be a little bit of a salad bar approach because, although I don't kind of mind, quote unquote collateral damage, I mean, the part to take down is really the, transphobic turf kind of variant. Whatever. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that's a problem in Dianic Wicca. I think there's a lot of problems with Dianic Wicca, that being one of them. There's a lot of exclusionary practices within Dianics.
All right, I'd also like to welcome Concussed, Darth Kitty, and OG Butinsky. It's very good to have three of you on. Go ahead.
What's happening, OG? We're talking about Dianic Wicca.
I heard the Dianic, but I would think the god Diana, like, isn't.
Yes, okay. It's basically. I have to break it down a little bit. It's a very feminist sect of Wicca that has a focus around the goddess Diana. And Diana was the virgin and the huntress. in Greek mythology. She's a sexual purity goddess as well as a huntress goddess, and has been used several times as a kind of a patron goddess of feminism, certain forms of it.
Sort of their archetypical goddess or archetype or for feminism, archetype or whatever.
Archetype, yeah.
Thanks.
It kind of
you
works.
say it's tied in with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It kind of works that way. A lot of Dianics believe in Diana as a literal goddess, but a lot of them don't. So there's a lot of them respect her as an archetype and practice that way. It's not really a. I haven't heard much about it being a necessary point of disagreement among Dianics of whether or not Diana existed. That's not really what they're out to prove. What they're out to prove is more about a kind of a very exclusionary form of second wave feminism.
Sounds like the might involve something like a alternative position to say, the radical Marxist, anarchist, liberal, etc. kind of affairs where it says it's sort of the root of women's oppression, such as in some kind of violation of the feminine sacred or something on that order. Go ahead.
Yeah, there is a lot of femininity is sacred themes in it.
So they have maybe a different, slightly more refined angle of attack than maybe the avant-garde of feminists for female ascendancy. Really, I wouldn't even know if I would call it that.
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry. As Concuss point out quite rightfully that Diana is the Roman form of the deity, not the Greek one, and the Greek counterpart is Artemis. But the differences between Artemis and Diana are so negligible that pulling from the Greek lore as well as the Roman lore is just fine when making comments about Diana. But yes, Diana is the Roman name. Go ahead, OG.
You're so informative. I've been a kind of, I don't mean to be a schmoozing butt kisser all the time, but so I'm calling this my litany of praises for you guys here. Ocean, you're really a fucking genius of a guy. I got to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed at myself sometimes stepping on you. Sometimes it's mic delay and stuff, but the more I listen to you, you really. What I like about your style is that you don't just. Well, no, I won't say this always, but oftentimes listening to you, your narrative is not such. You're trying to prove what you know in order to best your opponent. I mean, there's a certain amount of that, but best your opponent. There's a certain amount of that, but it's didactic along the way and informative, and you seem to be naturally instructive. And that's a skill level I can't quite understand. I can't quite define, but I can tell it's very polished.
Well, thanks. That's what I'm going for when I'm in these.
What you do by that naturally is create an empathy that even if somebody may be disagreeing with you in the sidelines watching, tend to kind of root for you. And even though the conclusions that I reach might not be the same, and might even actually be more in line with your counterpart, whoever you're having a dialectic with, I find myself compelled to say, God, Ocean's really got this point. It's just not, the guy is skipping over it and doing this and that. And I can't tell you which debate I'm even referring to or that, but I got to thinking about it. So it's a real nice, your efforts are, I think, being well used.
Thanks. What you're saying is kind of what I'm going for, so I appreciate you saying that. But you had a question about Dianic Wicca, OG,
yeah,
as well?
I was wondering if you had anticipate a new wave of feminism and if it's
new
going to be
wave?
better grounded and prepared and less, I want to say problematic. I don't want to get into the antics and stuff that I perceive, but maybe a little more
Are you
grounded.
talking about a fourth wave, or are you talking about
Oh,
as far
fourth
as Dianics are concerned?
yeah, I was wondering if Dianics was kind of going to be a format maybe uh, that new wave of feminists might embrace. And
No,
I have to check.
I don't think they would.
Oh,
Okay, Dianics. First off, Dianics is pretty old. It originates. God, I can't remember exactly when it came around, but it is 40 plus years old. Um, and it is rooted mainly in late second wave feminism, uh, and practices so in a way that could easily be termed as exclusionary.
see my ignorance. I thought that the term second wave was a new wave.
No. Second wave. Second wave ends around the 90s. Third wave starts in the 90s. And
So
third wave, we're seeing third wave now, and there's arguments that there's a fourth wave, which is this we're commonly terming as social justice warriors or social justice advocates.
I think the fourth wave is a far more like broadly international kind of concern. It incorporates kind of anti-colonial, etc. kinds of struggles from quite a number of cultures. Go ahead.
You're talking about intersectional?
No, the fourth wave.
Right, but does the fourth wave borrow a lot from intersectional feminism, or is it
Does it borrow a lot of what?
Intersectional feminism?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Hi, Helena. Well, I just looked up intersectional, and it was really easy to grasp, but I've forgotten it already. I've been kind of in the haste. I've got some errands to run, but intersectional, is there like a 50-second or 15-second definition of that, so I'm going to have to look it up again?
Feminism that also includes racism and
okay,
culturalism.
right. Thank you.
I'd like to also welcome Pope Benedict, Faith, and Helena. It's very good to have the three of you on as well. Yeah, it's not as I understand it, a thesis of intersectionality. It's not so much that it is trying to incorporate those into the feminist movement per se, but that it knows that there are in some respects interlocking kinds of.
Right. It shows how they all bounce off each other.
Sorry, what's that?
It shows how they all bounce off each other. Yeah.
Right.
Josh,
the word patriarchy gets replaced with kyriarchy. Patriarchy is still a point of the conversation, but kyriarchy or chirarchy, depending on how you pronounce it, becomes a bigger point of conversation because it's about basically European white male dominance rather than just male dominance.
Can I announce something really quickly? And that is that I won't be here long.
Well, that's
before I leave to hear if there's somebody trying to get in the room that's a worthy debater. Sorry, Monadia. Just wanted to leave try to time my leaving so that it works.
That idea of European white male domination, whatever it is, I think has it's very much kind of centered around areas of the world where European white males are some kind of factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, often whatever kind of reaches of India or China or such, this a very different thing going on. I guess places like what is it, Ghana or Saudi Arabia and such. There's other things going on there too. Go ahead.
I agree. And that's kind of a sort of counterpoint to how a lot of people interpret intersectional feminism that I've seen, but I don't know really what the official literature, or if there is any official literature or anything like that, on what intersectional feminism's position is on China or Saudi Arabia. What I've seen, I saw something recently talking about the releasing of films like whether or not you could have a homosexual relationship in Star Wars between Finn and Poe. This is a kind of a sidetrack, but um, let's not get stuck on this. But if you have a homosexual relationship between Finn and Poe in the new Star Wars film or the sequels, it won't be able to screen in China. And the reason why they won't put those in there is because it won't be able to screen in China. So they want to get that money of it screening in China. The response to that I saw was, don't blame a nation of color on Hollywood's lack of willingness to put homosexuals in their blockbuster productions. And the conversation there was really interesting because it was sort of absolving any guilt from China's media laws in relation to presenting homosexuality in films, especially as a central plot line. Because if it's a central plot line, you can't cut it and then screen it in China. It doesn't work. Brokeback Mountain can't screen in China, but Star Wars can because it might be subtly suggesting at a homosexual attraction, but it's not really doing anything with it. It was weird. It's like there's definitely an issue in Hollywood when it comes to presenting these things, but arguably in the blockbuster market, China is offering a payoff to not show these things. And Hollywood is happy to take the money.
Well, in some respects, the intersectional analysis is a product of a very Western kind of or I mean even American kind of fare, and it's something of a I don't know if it's cultural imposition or introduction of like foreign cultural whatever it is to places where it might not necessarily apply. And I think a lot of the kind of discussion that could be had in that respect is okay, does it actually fit, or the general analysis that is, and beyond that, is it how do you fix it up, or what do you replace it with, or what do you do instead of it when something actually does come out? Go ahead.
I think there's definitely a lot of questions in intersectional feminism, and I'm also not I'm only familiar with it in passing. I have not really dug into this issue very much at all, but I have seen sort of the effects in conversation about people that take it very seriously, or from people that take it very seriously, when dealing with it. This is a specific issue, but the thing that I found interesting was absolving a nation of color of its, and calling it a nation of color, first off, China, and then painting it as a victim, but saying that white producers should not be blaming a nation of color for not putting progressive characters in their films, when clearly China's laws are an issue.
And with that, so this
I don't. Oh, sorry.
Global thing. I typed in there to ask a quick question a moment ago. This global thing, does that take into mind? I'll just blurt it out and say Sharia law. Are they going to take those victims?
Intersectionality. I haven't seen very much about intersectionality talking about nations that are outside of Western influence. But
if Cologne is any
Sharia law was strong, were real robust, I would support them in spite of their screeching, the antics that have made the memes lately, at least, with them shrieking at people on campus.
I just haven't seen it. It might be there. I just haven't seen it. And I again state this is not a subject that I have dived into very seriously.
I also don't know a whole lot about it, but from what I have learned, I think that intersectional feminism, at least, is about looking at the places where people who are already feminists, where other areas where they're discriminated against or looked down upon, or where their needs, as far as activism is concerned, intersect, is the idea. So you're talking about like the
Right.
groups within feminism that are typically ignored by mainstream feminism.
Does it
So-
take? I guess it takes a number of issues and puts them under a coalition with feminism as the head. Is that a? I mean, that seems like what it's doing to me.
Yeah, that's the impression I got as well.
Well, I would first like to welcome Tanya and Incorporated, and suggest that I mean, even within the context of gender, you consider it as a thing, just the sort of ultimate focus and all that. The trick is that in not quite a number of different contexts, whatever kinds of negative biases or maybe even a positive bias now and then, it takes some number of forms. And what are the kinds of contexts that shape that, and how do they do so, and all that. And that's I think more of the question involved here. And you can examine also the kinds of ways in which the categories are interacting, right? So, for instance, intra-categorical complexity is the kind of analysis that goes about looking at, say, I don't know, some context of some particular race, and let's say a different category, say gender, within that sort of, I guess, context of some kind of particular ethnicity or something like that, how the dynamics of it are, distinctive in some particular way, whatever. That sits there, and you also have the anti-categorical complexity, which is, in effect, how some kind of individualized, fine-tuning to the situation might go on. And I'd also like to welcome Jackie. Go ahead.
So I understand what you're talking about, I think, when you say the intra-categorical complexities. And those go back, like, as far, like you can look at Sojourner Truth and her Ain't I a Woman speech. And that's sort of, to me, sort of the essence of what intersectional feminism is about. It's like, it needs to include the people who are feminists and their concerns with respect to the other areas where they have concerns that are easily neglected by, I guess, mainstream white feminism. I'd like to know a little bit more about what you mean by anti-categorical complexity. Nadia, that's to you.
You're getting a little bit of, I don't know, intermittent audio disruption. Could you clarify which of the kinds of analyses you were interested in? Intercategorical, intra-categorical, or anti-categorical again? Go ahead.
Anti-categorical.
Well, anti-categorical is basically analyzing, some kind of individual scenario, sort of irrespective of the various categories. Instead of from within some kind of, context that deems it a product of being within the category, or, well, not deeming it, but, seeks out that which is a product of being within the category, right? So, I mean, that I think, is able to handle, in some respects, the various kinds of exceptions and such. I mean, because you go about find that, you find some other force at work, perhaps, as opposed to maybe just these categorical structures of how people classify each other and all that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand. Are you saying that someone who might be an anti-categorical, I guess, feminist or anti-categorical view of feminists a feminism is someone who wants to look for common ground and not bother with particular. I want you to read. Try again. What do you mean anti-categorical? Tell me again.
Well, it's a kind of method of analysis as opposed to a kind of doctrine to be adhered to. So, I mean, for instance, where it doesn't seem that the examination of distinction categories, etc., might help. It's kind of an exception. Maybe quote-unquote bucks a trend. You want to find the forces of work that aren't necessarily these kinds of social groupings and all that. That's you break out the anti-categorical complexity based analysis there to try to track that down, or at least you call that kind of process it's kind of examination from the point of view of anti-categorical complexity, right? So I mean,
so what might be some examples? If let's suppose you want to take an anti-categorical view. And so what kinds of things would grow out of that?
It's nice to meet you, Helena, man. Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about like the anti-categorical views of feminism, but I just think that obviously feminism to me is women having equal rights to everybody else. To everybody else, yeah. That's my sort of view on it. It's pretty simplistic, but then so am I,
It gets way more complicated than that once you expand.
Well, I know it does, but that's my simplistic view on the matter. I don't know about anti-categorical views of, feminism. Simple as that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Go ahead, Nadia.
Well, I mean, let's say we break out some kind of exception to the rule and all that. Somebody's, bucking all the trends of whatever kinds of oppression they might be, putatively under by all the categories they fit into and all that. And you say, okay, well, hey, what makes them special? How do they, actually manage to do it and all that? And, that kind of thing could be a case of analyzing it in terms of anti-categorical complexity. I mean, we can make it more specific or something. To have to find somebody fitting into enough various categories to quote unquote made it big or whatever. Go ahead.
So it almost sounds like you're saying something that I might say like cross-categorical, right? So you said, well, let's look at the exceptions, the people who made it despite all of the things that are against them. And so you wouldn't bother with what categories they fit into. You look at sort of what it is that helped them along. So in other words, it's irrelevant whether or not they fit into a category and what category they may or may not fit into. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, in the cases, etc., they get involved, or phenomena, if they're not people. I mean, doesn't necessarily cut across the lines of our social groupings how the force at work that either oppresses or elevates them or whatever it is as it's going about and we're analyzing something like that instead of one of our kind of own social groupings and dynamics of how being grouped that way plays out. I use anti-categorical complexity for that, and then inter and intra-categorical complexity for things that do actually color inside the lines of our own social groupings. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, if I can go ahead and interject, Nadia, I think the problem is our evolution. We evolved as a hierarchical sort of patriarchal species because we came from north of the Congo River and not south of the Congo River like bonobo chimpanzees. And we just kind of, as a result, we ended up being the way that we are. But maybe we can change in the future.
Actually, yeah, we may have to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I think we can, it's possible, and we could change. Maybe if you get a group of humans that go colonize another planet, maybe they'll evolve to be different. They would evolve to be differently. But as long as we're on this planet, I think this, things will kind of remain the same. What do you think, Ocean? Are you there, Ocean?
Oh, I have a. I don't know if we want.
I don't know. I said in the chat, the side chat, BRB making a sandwich, but if I'm still here actually, but I don't know.
You made us some information. Hold on, Ocean. You just made yourself a sandwich?
I'm about to.
Why don't you make yourself a hamburger? That's way better than a sandwich.
I don't have hamburger.
Go get some.
I have no.
I'm just messing with you, man.
Hi, what's going on? I
Hi,
went
Jackie.
AFK for a few minutes to get some art supplies.
But,
Hi, Jackie. We're trying to understand intra, and anti categorical views of feminism or within.
No, not feminism.
What?
Yeah, but I don't think there's any.
No, it's more like the discussion of feminism is so heated.
Yeah, I heard. I think it was. Let me think. It was yesterday on some hangout you came in. I don't even know if I was in it or not. That you disavowed feminism. You were like, I am not a feminist. And that's a surprise to me, I have to say. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Oh, wow.
Okay, if I
Jackie.
Can
I'm talking to Jackie.
Well, Jackie's not here right now, so I'll speak in her place. With feminism, I actually think feminism is necessary.
Just hold off.
I think it's necessary, and it's good because what it does is it helps keep human population numbers like in check. Like if we just had a society where the women's only role was to crank out babies, we'd be overpopulated like crazy right now. So what we need is a society that integrates both males and females into social activities, into productive social activities that don't just exclusively revolve around having sex. This is why we're such a technologically advanced species, because we can use the brain capital of both males and females to contribute to our advancement as a species.
Do you think the Western world, or let's just maybe leave it to America, still needs feminism, or do you think
absolutely? I would agree absolutely that, for the simple reason that you still have people out there who if they feel that they can get away with marginalizing a minority group, and women are classified as a minority group, they feel that some people feel that if they can get away with marginalizing them, then they'll go ahead and do it. So absolutely, women should assert themselves using feminism as a means of just protecting themselves and helping to realize their worth and their value in society as women, their self-respect as women. And because if we didn't have that, we'd have, we got societies still today like Iran or the Middle East or India where it's still legal to beat or even kill your wife for various reasons. Feminism has prevented a lot of that stuff in the Western world.
Yes, but referring to the third world does not make a case for why it's necessary in the first world.
Yeah, it's necessary in the first world because if we didn't have it, I believe that men would be oppressing women because they feel that they would be able to get away with it and there would be no consequences to it. So it needs to be there. It's something that is necessary.
Okay, but don't you think that eventually when a movement has accomplished its goal, it should kind of just go away?
I don't think feminism has really 100% accomplished its goal. I think that
That's not the assertion I'm making. I'm simply wondering.
Its ultimate goal. I don't think it has a goal. I think its ultimate goal is simply to facilitate women in society so that they can be treated fairly and given equal opportunity. And that's going to be an ongoing thing because there's always going to be someone out there who's going to want to disenfranchise someone for whatever reason.
No, absolutely. But my problem is a lot of what I've seen from I guess the fourth wave, technically, of feminism has been, well, not that. I mean, you've got the He for She campaign, which is chivalry revived. You've got people demanding safe spaces to be on the internet places. It's ridiculous. It's making women out to be victims instead of trying to empower them. But of course, I'm speaking only for kind of the media feminism that we see.
Well, I'm not. I mean, but in all honesty, who are we to say that that their grievances aren't legitimate or not? I mean, who are we to call them victims or to even say that they're playing the victim if we haven't walked a mile in their shoes?
On some issues, I would agree with you, but when I hear complaints about the air conditioning being sexist, I hope you can understand that I think it's a rather petty complaint to make.
Okay, well, there is a case to be made for that. Sometimes
how is air conditioning misogynistic?
Yeah. This is what I want to know. Like,
sometimes when you have pregnant women, they need a certain temperature, and if you're not considerate of that.
Yeah, it's not even just for pregnant women. It was some women complaining about the air conditioning being too high in office places.
But the case about walking in other people's shoes, especially in women's shoes, I wouldn't want to walk a mile in a pair of fucking high heels, to be honest. So, there's a thing there, If they was flat shoes, maybe they might be alright, but not in a pair of high heels. But, who knows? Yeah. But anyway, there was something I was going to say.
Yeah, well, it also more since my knee. Since my knee got destroyed in what is it? I guess late 2010, early 2011, or whatever. I can't walk in those anymore. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a little term used a little bit earlier about maybe it wasn't a very good term about cranking babies out, but women, have to have babies, otherwise we're all fucked, aren't we? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we'd all become an anti-natalist society, which wouldn't do any fucking good at all. But the point is, I mean, women do have certain responsibilities that most men don't have. I mean, most things that women do or men do can be integrated, and men can do fucking housework the same as women can, do I don't know, construction fucking work. But I mean, it's okay. Say probably it might be okay for a man to have 50 wives, but it wouldn't really be practical for a woman to have 50 fucking husbands, in my opinion. I mean, that would be a head fuck, wouldn't it, for any woman?
Well, I'd make the argument that the whole population argument. When you look at a world that's about to have like 7 billion people in it. Okay, we have enough population. We need less population, so we need to empower women with feminism the world over in order so they can, step out of that role of just being baby makers and being able to intellectually contribute to societies and other methods as well. That'll help our, stabilize our population and in the future. So yeah, I think we need feminism in the third world as well. We need it in India, the Middle East, Africa. We need it all over.
Yeah, actually, in Africa, yes. Definitely in Africa.
Yeah.
Well, no. My point was not that the world was overpopulated in any way. I mean, I think it's sort of well known that the world's population could fit inside Texas. You know what I mean? How true that is, I'm not sure, but I mean, I don't think it's far from the truth. It's not about world overpopulation. That's not what I was getting at.
No, yeah, I mean, when it comes to, yeah, it's, overpopulation isn't quite the right term. I mean, it'll take a hell of a lot more people than we have on the planet now to actually start having to trample one another. It's more just limited resources being split by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also degradation of wildlife and ecosystem as well. I mean, look at the oil spill that happened a few years ago in the Gulf of Mexico. Look at what's happening to the panda in China and the tiger.
And the
Genuine
albatross.
global resource shortages have not actually genuinely arrived. They will, but
yes, they have not.
They're not. They're not. No. There is enough of various materials to go around.
No, there's not.
If you take like the whole world, the trouble is distribution right now.
No.
On the other hand, it can be relatively easily foreseen that such genuine shortages are going to arrive. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that Nadia is right in what she's saying. It is the distribution of the resources rather than the resources themselves. I think there's plenty of resources all over this planet to last for a fucking long time. And even most of those in the future we won't need to use because of new technology coming along. But I mean, it's about the unequal distribution of the resources at the moment. That's the problem. How you can get over that, I haven't got a fucking clue. But you know, I think that is the problem.
I wouldn't say equal per se, but more like something on the order of maldistributed or not given to people in such ways that it would meet their needs. Go ahead. Oh, I don't entirely understand the importance of Twitter hashtags. Are they actually like something that really needs to be considered so much? Go ahead.
No. I mean, Gregory Allen Elliott was on trial for like, what, 3 years for a disagreement on Twitter. So, yeah, I'd say things like that do actually have some noticeable effect on the outside world.
Okay, then I would. I guess if the man spreading affair is some kind of Twitter hashtag, then yeah, I'd say it's maybe not. It's not really the best kind of whatever it is, kind of analysis. Not a good sort of campaign to make or whatever. Go ahead.
Well, the Gregory Allen Elliott thing had nothing to do with manspreading. But yeah, manspreading is another cancerous tumor that's blossomed. I'm not sure if it was Twitter or Tumblr.
It was on both.
But which one first? Where was patient zero?
Well, I've seen some bad hashtags go around. There was a, what was it? Something like shared girlhood or something like that. Started up by TERFs or whatever. It's kind of like. Actually, I guess trans objections to it, because it did kind of take on a life of its own, were kind of drowned out because various people ended up kind of naively jumping in and all that. And then there's actually some kind of like grand, I guess, socioeconomic and racial or whatever it is kind of divide that was ended up turning into, I think, the bulk of the dispute around it. And the original kind of transphobic intention as such ended up getting ignored. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it looks like manspreading did start on Twitter. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I want to do this little book club thing with Silverman's latest book. I just put out a G+ notification on it. But something that I've noticed is, in some of his talks, and somewhere in the book, he talks about how the firebrand atheist serves a kind of a dual function. Number one, it actually serves an activism purpose, and he's got a specific agenda that's sort of not really related to the feminist agenda. But nonetheless, I think that there's an analogy that can be made. So the firebrand atheists can be the bad guy. Right? And so what does that mean? Well, if you have people aware of the firebrand atheists and they call them the bad atheists, that means that there are good atheists. And the good atheists are the atheists and maybe even some atheist activists who take a more moderate or more understanding. Oh, sorry. Hang on a second. I apologize, my dogs. Anyway, can I still be heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so the firebrand atheists then create a dichotomy in the minds of sort of bystanders, right? And so now there are sort of bad guy atheists, which means there must be good guy atheists, and that promotes sort of whatever the activist agenda is for an activist atheist. So similarly, the crazy feminists create a dichotomy whereby feminists who don't align themselves with the crazies have something to align themselves with, which is more the mainstream accepting egalitarian type feminist. And now, for the bystander, there are these good feminists, and that happened because a category was created in the mind of the bystander of a bad feminist. Very similar kind of thing. So I'm wondering what you guys think about that. I'm seeing a parallel there.
I'm seeing something else happening, which is that egalitarianism is kind of becoming its own movement, separate from feminism. And as a result, you have both of them sort of decrying one another, where you don't have like good feminists and bad feminists. You have feminists and then egalitarians, which can be labeled as feminists and anti-feminists at times. And then there's tons of different movements that are coming around this. It's not as specific as atheism.
Yeah, including the men's rights movement.
Yeah, there's the men's rights movement as well, which is another animal entirely. Which, God, that exists. Anyway, there's some things that it brings up that are really interesting. But I don't know. Again, there's several sides coming into this, whereas atheism is focused on one topic, feminism is focused on several topics.
So what are the several topics that you see feminism focusing on?
I mean, it can be generally focused down to inequality generally, but there's several specific topics that it goes into, which is going to be white oppression, cultural appropriation, the wage gap, equality in the workplace, catcalling, gays, representation in the media. And different feminists have different positions on all of these things. Some women like catcalling. The majority of them don't. So it depends on the person that you're talking to.
So what is it that depends on the person that you're talking to?
The views they hold on those.
I don't know what you're asking.
So we're talking about, I guess I should say, I would like to try to limit the conversation to activists. And not forever, but I mean for the purpose of this analogy, to see if this analogy is any good or not, right? So this is another interesting thing, and it's also, I see parallels in atheism. So, for example, you can have an atheist who's not an atheist activist who just says they don't believe in gods. Likewise, you can have a feminist who's not a feminist activist, right? Who will say, I believe in equality or something like that. But if we just stick to the people who are doing activism in one way or another, I'd like to kind of look to see if this parallel that I think I'm seeing holds any weight at all. If we limit the feminist thoughts of the feminists to the activists, does that make my analogy any better?
That's what I was talking about.
Okay, so you're talking about activists. So it depends. No. So you said it depends on who you are.
I'm defining activist as anybody who's actively taking part in the conversation and has a name associated with themselves or something.
Okay, so you said it depends on who you are. It depends. So what depends?
Like every activist and every person in this conversation has a different perspective on a lot of these issues. As a result, feminism is a web of different movements, whereas atheism doesn't necessarily have that attribute, because it's focusing in on a single issue, or at least significantly less issues.
Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. I'm not so sure it really is just focusing in on a single issue.
Well, if we take the kind of the uniting principle of all the different brands of feminism, excluding the radical feminists who believe in female superiority, and we just kind of say, okay, feminism is about equality. The thing is, equality can mean a few different things. It could mean equality of opportunity or equality of outcome, whereas atheism means one thing, a disbelief in a god. So it's still not quite an equal comparison.
But atheist activists focus on different things. Right? So there are some who are interested in normalizing the what it means to be an atheist, so that it becomes just as normal as any other sort of self-identifying thing with respect to beliefs. Right? There are others who are interested in creating rights for atheists. Is similarly, like you've got the satanic groups who are really interested in law and are interested in combating laws, and they go around making statues of Satan to put up next to the Ten Commandments on government sites and things like that. They're very much interested in keeping the separation of church and state separate. Right? You've got other activists.
Here's a subtle difference.
Okay,
a lot of the issues that you pointed out are peripherals to what atheism is. The issue in feminism is that none of these issues are peripheral to what feminism is. Like, atheism is a fairly simple and straightforward concept. So is feminism when you get down to the brass bones of it, but the effects are much wider when it comes to what the effects of that, well, the effects are much wider with what it's talking about. When you're talking about atheism representation, that's something that could probably be squeezed under intersectional feminism more than it could under atheism.
I honestly don't get the point of comparing and contrasting the two. They're different. Okay, we've decided that. So what?
So I brought it up because I see something going on in the atheism activism that I thought might be also happening in feminism. You weren't there at the time, right? So the
Well,
fire
I've been
rate.
listening for.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm there's no real reason. I'm just exploring, right? I'm just looking at it.
I'm just thinking that the difference is that there's a much bigger web of movements in feminism than there is in atheism. Atheism you can simplify to like maybe 4 or 5 factions. We've got like atheism plus and the libertarian atheists, and then the more science-minded naturalistic atheists, and then more spiritual atheists.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that matters either. I think the reason you have less factions is potentially because you have less people, right? You have 3.5 billion people. You're going to have multiple, considerably more factions than if you have, I'm just saying, throwing out a number, 500 million.
I think that there might be more atheists than feminists. I'm not sure. I think that the percentage of self-identifying feminists is much lower than the percentage of self-identifying atheists.
Yeah, but I think you can consider any woman in that category that makes up those that you said the effects of feminism. And so they're going to have an opinion. I don't know that they're going to call themselves that, but they're going to have an opinion on what feminism is and what it should stand for. And that's where you're getting all the factions. Are those?
Helena was wanting to restrict it to activists, so that's why I was saying that.
Yeah, but I restrict it to activists then. I don't think
I'm interested in restricting it to activists. However, Ocean, you presented a really huge net for what an activist is, right? You were like anyone who's engaged in a conversation.
Agreed.
No.
Yeah.
So that kind of defeated my.
I think you might have missed what I meant when I said that. But,
okay, what did you mean?
Well, I mean, I think that if you're going to be a feminist activist, you should be at least self-identifying as a feminist. Or as an atheist activist, you should be at least self-identifying as an atheist. You can participate in the conversation and not be an activist. As I'm seeing it, I don't... there's a difference between a feminist who is advancing an opinion on pornography and a woman who doesn't self-identify as a feminist, who has an opinion on pornography but doesn't really talk about it that much, but has the opinion.
And you see that the person who says she's a feminist and then gives an opinion on pornography is an activist because she says she's a feminist?
I wouldn't consider somebody who doesn't identify as a feminist activist. I just wouldn't. I don't know how you would catch that in the net.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But don't you think that there are people who say they're feminists who aren't activists? Similarly to there are people who say they're atheists who aren't activists? I'd like to narrow it down a little.
That's not what I was trying to narrow down. Hermine made a comment that suggested that you could not be a feminist but still a feminist activist. And that doesn't make very much sense to me.
No. You could be not a feminist activist, and that doesn't make sense to you?
No, I'm saying that you can... No. What it sounded like you were saying was that somebody could not be a feminist and still be a feminist activist.
No, I'm saying that you could... All the sections that you were talking about and the delineation between feminism comes primarily from those that are not activists, but are the effects of feminism obviously affect them.
Well, yeah, I think that these things affect people, but I don't... Does that have to do with what we were talking about?
Yeah, because specifically you were saying that the reason you don't have as many groups I'm saying, my whole point is, the reason you have so many groups in feminism is because of those people who are affected by feminism but aren't activists that also give their opinion on how and definition of feminism. When you look to people who are truly activists, there really are only 3 or 4 subsections in feminism.
3 or 4? There's 3 waves.
Really are.
And then there's a bunch of sub-movements within those waves.
Women are better than men,
fourth wave,
but they still get talked over. Women are equal to men, and that there should be a balance of, and that's where it starts to get a little murky. But it's really not that challenging.
Okay, yeah, I see your point. That makes sense to me. And for the record, I looked it up. In the U.S., there are more people, or there's a larger percentage of people who identify as feminists than there are people who identify as atheist.
Is there? What's the percentage that identifies as feminist?
I think it's about 16 or 18% as of recently, and atheism is about, okay, 11% say that they don't believe in a god. However, only 4.4% identified as atheist.
The last thing that I saw said that 25% identified as irreligious.
Okay, this is coming from a World Values Survey in 2014.
Or you can call yourself irreligious and not call yourself atheist. Similarly, there's a similar thing going on inside feminism, right? There's a similar thing going on inside feminism.
With egalitarianism, yeah.
Yeah.
Which could be, like, I've considered MRAs as a feminist movement.
I have too.
Which gets a lot of people like, what? But
well, sure, because
it's fun to do that and watch the gears start to kind of lock together in their brains.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I mean, I have too.
Some people don't respond well to that. Some people do.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I'm wondering is, well, first of all, this using wave to delineate the different factions of feminism, to me, might be something that I think we should abandon, because I mean,
that's
it's
not what I'm doing.
ridiculous. It's like 30th wave, right?
There's 3.
Well, there may be 4.
Well, there's kind of 4.
And some say there are 5
kind of
now,
4, yeah.
right? Some of the younger people even are saying, "Oh, well, I'm the 5th wave," and so I think that's going to be. That's sort of like, modernism, postmodernism, postmodernism, post. We need to come up with something better, in my opinion. That's a little side thing, but I feel like that could help. I don't know. I'm just sort of rambling at this point.
I'm not saying that, like, the waves refers mainly to time periods from which these movements come from. Nadia, you got a lot of.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a bit more than just time periods, because if you look at the different waves of feminism, they each had slightly different goals. Obviously, the primary goal was equality, but the shall we call them milestones? First wave, suffrage.
Right.
Second wave, getting women out of the house, getting them into the workforce, getting them paid equally, etc., etc.
It also had sexual liberation.
Yes,
I have to agree with you on that one, and I'm a feminist. So.
Well, okay. The waves, the reason why I'm saying it's time periods is because when you talk about waves of feminism and feminist history, you're talking about the time periods from which they come from, and also there's the issues that they dealt with, but those issues are very specific to the time period that they were in. Now, saying that the waves are different movements in and of themselves, it's true that there are some people in the modern era that identify with a first, second, or third wave more than they, that it might not be the same as the time period that they're in, being now. Now is more of a third wave or fourth wave. But there's several different movements within those. Third wave feminism isn't a movement. It's just kind of what's happening. The opinions have changed.
Yeah.
Within that is like sex positive feminism or sex negative or intersectional or these other things that are movements within feminism.
Very accurate. That's accurate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I agree.
You clarified that pretty well. Also, I might be wrong, but can you kind of like, if you know that I'm correct, can you like correct me if I'm wrong? But I think the whole notion of being modest is actually came through from a feminist sort of a feminist progress to actually include that in society, be modest or something. I heard that somewhere. Not sure.
I'm not sure what you mean by modesty. You mean modest in attitude or modest in dress or what?
Modesty, like as modesty towards women, like being modest towards women, basically. Like basically holding the door open for a woman, or
Usually, like modesty is demanded from women. What are you on about? Go ahead.
What do you mean? What I'm on about? I'm about being modest to women.
Okay,
or
I'm
maybe
still a bit confused.
maybe I'm
Modesty isn't usually something that one does to something or someone.
Yeah, I think I'm confusing something. I think I'm confusing a word, and it's like a word salad right now. I forgot.
Yeah, I don't think you're using the word modesty correctly.
I know what word you're trying to use.
Yeah, Jackie, I know. Yeah. If you can help me out, those.
Are you talking about chivalrous?
Yeah. Yes. Chivalry. Oh my God. Thank you. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about chivalry. The whole notion of chivalry came through from a feminist sort of perspective and progress being, carried out. As I've heard,
Well,
I've heard that's a feminist.
Actually, I think it was crusade experience and sort of idolization of Saladin. Was the sort of model for chivalry and such. Is that right? Go ahead.
Yeah, it came out of the Middle Ages. It's hard to say it predates feminism. It's hard to say it came out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's probably not related to feminism.
Probably not. Yeah. I just heard it somewhere. I just had to kind of, correct myself on that. Sometimes when I hear some things, like I just try to, get to the.
Well, actually, Ocean, you might be able to speak to the historical context. I thought the sort of model of the I guess honorable knight or whatever was actually like Saladin from experience in the Crusades and all that. Go ahead.
It might be influenced. It comes from a similar period, but I don't know. I don't know that to be true. It could be.
Yeah, because I think women were mistreated badly without chivalry being introduced. Like they were kind of being treated as, well, purely like animals, just like subhumans, basically, to males. Before chivalry came through and kind of, some modifications or in behavior towards them, I guess.
Well, as far as I know, chivalry came out of Europe, and Saladin was Middle Eastern. There might be a relation.
It would have been during the Crusades.
Okay, he achieved a reputation in Europe as a chivalrous knight, so I guess fair enough.
The chivalry was developed around the same time as the Crusades, so it makes sense that it might have been developed from influence from Saladin.
Yeah, I suppose.
But I'm just saying it's safe to say it. I don't know it to be true. I haven't read that anywhere. But I also don't know anything about the origin of chivalry, so I just know like the time period from which it's around where it came, which would be around the Crusades. And also that it makes the other thing that makes sense about it is that it's from a period where the Middle East was much more progressive on its ideas about women than the West was.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, chivalry was more a code of battle conduct than really having that much to do with treatment of women. I mean, it did have some stuff in there, but...
Now, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but native culture actually was quite socially, progressive, I think, in some ways.
Where, in Europe, or...?
In the Americas. In the continent of America, basically.
Socially progressive? This is kind of it's going way away from the conversation we were having. But
it's because of what you said. That's basically that Europe was more socially progressive than, I guess.
No, the Middle East was more socially progressive than Europe. At the time of the Crusades.
Oh, okay.
And
carry on.
No, honestly, the Norse were even more socially progressive. In that general period of time, but I mean a little bit before it, before Christianity got more heavily involved. But with what you're talking about with native culture or Native American culture, it's hit or miss. Some of them were, some of them weren't.
I mean, yeah, they were very warlike tribes, but they were not
Not
like
all of them.
not all of them, yeah, but
You had some tribes that were matriarchal. You had some of them that were patriarchal, and you had some that traced their lines through mothers, others that traced their lines through the men.
that was awesome.
It's completely like it depends on the tribe. It really does. And even in that case, you still idealizing them socially doesn't necessarily make much sense because with each tribe you can find some abhorrent practice that would be really looked down upon today.
Mm. Yeah, cause from CK or Jack or CK told me they were like communistic or something, and I'm like, I wouldn't really put
He's
it
probably
past.
talking about the Plains Indians, which kind of were communistic.
Mm. So that's kind of socially progressive, though, I guess.
Not really. They were the same groups were patriarchal.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can.
That's the reason why I get frustrated when somebody's trying to do because they're taking like Eastern Native social values and then trying to apply them to the Plains Indians, which isn't the case.
Work.
And it's like it has to do with there's a lot of issues that are romanticizing the past on these kind of things where you take like very individualistic tribes and you're trying to combine all of them together into this idealistic vision. It's a fantasy.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess what they were probably trying to tell me that in their distribution and the way they use their resources, that was the communistic.
They also practice scalping. Like there's all kinds of stuff you can find about these people that are just like, oh well, that's there was scalping, there was ritualistic killing, and there was also communism, essentially, when it comes right down to it. But it was also it had to do with their life, the way that they practiced living. They moved around with their herds, so the idea of land ownership was absurd. It wasn't necessary. They didn't farm. They were hunters, and they traveled with the herds.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So I guess that would lead to more conflict if you think if there's more tribes and they travel through another tribe mistakenly travel through another tribe.
There was the concept of territory, but the concept of personal land ownership was absurd.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that this is, somehow appeal to a time before patriarchy or whatever it is got created. I also think, what is it? What were we actually on? It was like the concept. I think, given that non-essentialism is, a rather frequently occurring doctrine as such, a sort of non-essentialist theory of the waves and such is probably going to end up happening too. Yeah.
Nadia, your signal is not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in a perfect communist system, there would be nothing essential, to be fair. Well, that's in a perfect communist sort of idealistic kind of society, I guess.
Yeah, kind of theoretical Marxism.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, theories are flimsy things that fall apart.
Does Helena or Hermine want to get us back on topic with what we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
I think Brother's tangent has lasted long enough. Sorry, might be head.
Diana Wicca, and what is it? I guess kinds of ties into it with feminism and all that. Go ahead.
I could talk about Diana Wicca again if you wanted me to. But, I guess Diana Wicca is one of those feminist movements that could be tied back to second wave. as an example of what I was talking about earlier. And it has a couple of things. It's spiritual, it's sex negative, it's female empowerment.
That sounds like Femen to me, sort of.
Femen and Dianic Wicca are very similar.
Yeah.
Like really similar.
That is some weird shit.
That sounds like an odd combination to me.
I have
negative and empowering.
I have a strong suspicion.
You can be sex negative and empowering.
That was said in
find
jest.
empowerment.
I'm not saying it's impossible. It just strikes me as counterintuitive almost.
Not to some. It's like this is one of the issues with trying to come up with a sort of theory of everything for equality, is that people are individuals, and some people find empowerment and some people find empowerment in different things that other people would find to be weakening.
Yeah, it's subjective. On a certain level, it's subjective, I guess. Yeah. Postmodernism is the same way, because it's the whole postmodern sort of analysis of it, I guess.
Like, for example, one way that some people can find sex negative, is a very popular way of finding it empowering, is through Christianity. Christianity is arguably very sex negative, but people find serious empowerment through it.
Yeah, which is weird. For me, it's weird. I have no idea why, but it's so fucking weird for me. Yeah.
What were you saying, Concussed?
No, I see your point. I was kind of imagining, or I didn't think to bring religion into it. The example that kind of came into my mind was abstinence. I suppose abstinence could be empowering to some.
Some women find abstinence to be to give more value on sexuality.
Yeah, to basically say that they have a higher standards for how they give out their, sex,
No, not even that. It's kind of like I was imagining it the same way. Being single is empowering. You don't have to.
I think being single is empowering, to be fair. I think being single is, in a way, empowering.
So
I'm not saying it isn't.
How isn't anything you choose to do with your sexuality empowering? You're making a choice, whether that's to not have sex or to be a slut. I don't understand how either of those aren't empowering.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's kind of why I found the sex negative and empowering thing a bit counterintuitive.
Wait, why? Because you just said that either one could be empowering.
Right.
Why do you say
that's what I'm saying. I think it would be more empowering to have that choice.
You can have the choice and make the choice to be more negative toward it, as long as you're in control of that option.
Okay.
And find empowerment through the option that you chose.
Yeah, it's generally in the feminist movement those types of sex negative people would be referred to as swerves, basically.
Oh,
swerves.
Swerves are sex worker exclusive radical feminists. Yes.
Yeah.
For sex worker. Go ahead.
Yes, and yet you support
but it's sex negative if you are against sex work. I think it's fair to say that you're pretty sex negative if you're against.
Well, Nadia is against.
There is some overlap between the two categories, but they need not be one and the same.
Yeah, that's true. There might be some sort of overlap, but they're not one and the same.
I didn't even realize there was a difference. I thought that sex negative was short for sex worker negative and pornography negative, stuff like that. I didn't even know there was a difference.
There's a bunch of movements underneath these, but sex negative can go from being against sex workers to being against showing your ankles, and still being a feminist.
Pretty much, which is
internalized.
It doesn't actually. You mean much of anything that is very descriptive? I mean, things like swerf and turf and anti-pornography or whatever are probably more adequate as descriptors than, quote unquote, sex negative. Go ahead.
They're generally also very dogmatic in their beliefs about
And
many
they
things.
are total shrews and prudes.
I agree that swerf and turf are much better than some kind of general term like sex negative. Like swerf, it's pretty easy to know what that means, and same with turf. Sex negative?
It's sketchy, I know.
Well, it's a very broad thing on purpose, because it catches a lot of different. There's a ton of movements in feminism. A ton. There really is a ton of movements within this, and so you could generally divide them up into sex negative and sex positive, or and then there's several issues that don't even have to do with sex that some feminist movements are centered around, and it's because it has to do with more about pay equality or something like that. And this is one of the reasons why I think that comparing atheism to feminism is kind of I agree with Hermine that it's a little absurd to try and compare them, because one is dealing with way more stuff than the other.
I think it's overblown to a degree. I think as well.
Well, I think it's kind of a also a position. It's something more of an imperative behind feminism. I mean, generally, the idea is to act against the gender oppression or whatever you want to call it, right? And in terms of atheism, it's really kind of a intellectual determination or demonstration. There are no such things as gods and so on, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. Speaking about badass women, many badass women in history who were like very radical in feminism. Not all of them were radical. Some of them were Marxists. Like they were from all different groups. But I heard there were like women who basically were like militia sort of kind of like feminists, and there were many of them before in history. It's pretty badass.
What do you mean in history? Like, do you
back in when there was a very apparent kind of inequality between men and women. Many.
Are you talking about like in the Middle Ages?
I'm talking about like during first wave and the second wave, basically. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking, because when you say throughout history, like I'm trying to figure out what you mean by that. Do you mean like in the 1900s and possibly late or early?
Even in Soviet Russia, some women were
whenever
sort of empowered.
Karl Marx was on the scene in his prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the idea of kind of the Industrial Revolution brought many progressive ideas to the table, which is kind of it was basically.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's generally how I think it went.
Well, my analysis of sort of the ideas of sex work and such are in effect that the action should be taken against things like capitalism altogether, as opposed to the particular practices of those trapped in the system who are trying to survive as they can. Go ahead.
All I heard was something about capitalism. I couldn't get the rest of what you had said.
I was trying to go on about sex work, right?
Right.
The thing to do about sex work is to do something about capitalism, not to do something against the particular worker who is trying to survive however they can.
But no,
go ahead.
Nadia.
Yeah, but
I don't think it's realistic. I really don't. I love the idea. Right, I love the idea of communism in theory. If everybody would just be nice, communism would work. But I don't think it's realistic. So
well, at least not at this point. At least not at this point in our stage as a species. Like maybe in the far off future.
Maybe in the far off future, but meanwhile, right?
Yeah.
What do we do meanwhile? I think that within a capitalist system, we have to decriminalize sex work. I don't see any other option.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree.
That's a good first step, indeed. I agree with it. Yeah.
Australia has, right?
But look, you see, like socialism today would probably only work with the vanguard sort of party, and which is why I do not advocate for a full-on socialist revolution today or tomorrow. Although I'm generally progressive.
Well, I don't like the idea of equating socialism and communism with progressivism. I think that might be a bit silly.
Socialism's already, granted the kind of national border affairs, kind of end up beating it and all that, but at the same time, you would have that something like Norway, where the proceeds from the development of their oil reserves or some such is spread around the population, funds their social welfare programs, who knows what. And I mean that kind of idea is like, in effect, common ownership means production, right? Although, I mean, there's a little bit of trick where you might call it a democratic deficit in terms of the decision making and how to utilize it, but still. Go ahead.
Yeah, the only problem I am kind of seeing with dragging the mixed economy bandwagon too far with all the reformism and all that capitalism might become kind of a welfare state sort of capitalism, thing, and then that's it's quite. Then it becomes the kind of Orwellian nightmare, sort of, because you kind of are sort of completely in sort of unaware of any. You kind of become.
What on earth? I mean, I think the idea was that the demonstrations of various kinds of political policies and practice are perhaps incomplete implementations of kind of what the policy, etc., should be. But at the same time, one can actually show that the various kinds of forms of oppression of women and such are, in fact, do come from kind of Marxist analysis, implemented sources, but others, I think, and you kind of have to take the analytic tools coming from the sort of Marxist feminist and anarcho-feminist and at times even the radical feminist camp. Although I don't think people entirely very often grasp what radical feminism means. So go ahead.
That's a very interesting kind of analysis there.
I certainly don't grasp what radical feminism is. I have no clue. I think it's the the Tumblr and the Twitter people.
No,
obviously that's not right.
Straw man. That's a straw man.
There's some confusion here because there are several groups that claim this title of radical feminists, and some groups who are more rational minded, they'll want a more extreme progression in rights for women and any other sexual orientation or colored person. Those people are out there, and there are people who are like the Tumblr radical feminists who are kind of coming up with all these extreme examples of shit that doesn't make any sense, like air conditioning being sexist.
I think you're
that's the straw man, though.
I'm sorry.
That's a straw man.
The sense. I'm sorry. Allow me. The sense of the word radical has to do with so I'm sorry, there is an incredible amount of noise coming over someone else's mic. If I could have a chance, thank you. So, the sense of the word radical that's used in this term, radical feminism and such, refers to the sense that involves, things being at the root, right? And the, radix is root, right? So, the thing here is that patriarchy is a trans-historical phenomenon prior to or deeper than other sources of oppression. Only the oldest and most universal form of domination, but the primary form and the model for all others, right? So, I mean, that's kind of what the doctrine holds and such, as far as how things are, how it's a sort of fundamental form of all oppression, right? Now the obviously right here it says later politics derived from it range from cultural to more syncretic politics, right? So that in that case, one of the syncretists that they're saying is the people who came after all that, right? Go ahead.
Okay, in that case, can we just quickly come to a consensus on a term we can use for like the brand of feminism we see on Tumblr and Twitter then? If we're not going to say radical feminist.
Tumblr feminist.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I like that.
Feminist.
Tumblr feminist.
Well,
That's what my kids are saying to one another.
Well, yeah, they can say like straw feminist, because like the straw man you end up tearing down, etc. I mean, but they're actually like the straw.
Well, is it a straw feminist if feminist exists and actually holds that view?
They take out the kind of like the worst, stupidest, whatever it is, and go off and just proclaim it on Tumblr, right? It's like, oh, come on.
Exactly.
That's straw feminist incarnate. That's kind of another thing you could conceive of it as in a way. But I think the
people say straw atheist to me a lot, and I think the straw atheist
easier for people to digest. Go ahead.
I was saying that the straw atheist has a similar situation where, like, people build up this false atheist that's really militaristic and kind of nuts, but it actually exists in plenty places.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of a straw man when it comes to, because if you're talking to somebody specifically and you bring out the straw atheist, even though that straw atheist may exist incarnate, it's not who you're having a conversation with.
True enough.
Okay, now this is a new one. I've not heard of this, like a straw man incarnate, and you're still straw manning someone.
It depends on who you're having a conversation with.
I think the idea is that the straw feminist, for example, makes a straw man out of his own movement. So he presents only the sort of straw man stances. That would be true for a straw man atheist. A straw atheist, right?
A straw theist. A straw theist. A straw minister. That sounds good.
Okay, so is that a term to like distance yourself from distance these nutters from your core movement, and
I'm trying
so
that
they're not a part of your movement whatsoever?
Yeah, it's trying to find a term that everyone can agree on. Yeah,
okay,
at least
but
in this hangout for the Tumblr types, right?
Okay, but that's not
Tumblr feminist.
And Nadia was suggesting straw feminist, or maybe it was Ocean who suggested straw feminist.
I was Nadia. It's Nadia, but I've heard the term before, and I've heard it made in reference to those people. I understand what she's saying. I don't use that. I use Tumblr feminist.
They are all just they're basically highly depressed feminists, basically. That's what they really are. They're very depressed feminists. I have no idea. It's very individualistically sort of twisted fucking feminists, what I call them, I think.
Okay, now, if I was in a conversation with them and I were to call them a Tumblr feminist and they like being called a radical feminist, then, we would be offending them.
So.
But are they radical? I mean, by the definition that Nadia posted, they're not. Are they radical? Do they believe that at root that is what at root is this
by that
gendered
definition.
relations, and that's gendered relations is primary to any other kind of oppression?
Not all of them.
Okay,
Not all of
but
them. Some of them might.
that is a specific definition. People can create their own definition for a word.
I don't know. I just found most users of Tumblr to be depressed anyway.
Yeah, it's a general
Well, you
kind
kind
of
of have to be on Tumblr if we're honest. You need some kind of social anxiety.
True.
And that's not like knocking down Tumblr users. I'm just saying that's how Tumblr operates.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's a generalization about it though. It's kind of like saying that people on DeviantArt are just pretentious. Oh wait, yes, there are pretentious artists.
Well, some of them are, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what about standpoint theory and ideology and identity politics as relates to sort of what's going on in feminism right now with the youth, with the people who are in college?
The youth.
The youth.
That's a conversation that gets slammed into the ground.
Every type of sexual orientation, stuff I've never heard before. They don't even identify with a sex. They, like, I mean, the stuff to me is like, whoa, it's so out there, but that's just how they're taking it.
It's those crazy kids, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at them like, huh? My daughter talks to me, and I'm like, can you define this? Can you define that? Can you explain this to me? She has to explain. It takes 10 minutes to explain 2 sentences because it's all a new world for me, and it's just their world. And I can tell she's looked upon it. You know, I can't speak to every student, but I can speak to this group where they're really like redefining gender.
Right.
That's almost like at the core.
Yes.
And
so,
like the term,
is that a bad thing?
Well, can I make one more statement before I say, is it a bad thing? Okay, I'll just make the quick statement. So when you asked earlier, like, I think Ocean said there's a ton of people who don't even identify as feminists, but that doesn't mean that they're not radical. I guess that was the point I was trying to make towards the cause. It's just that they don't like the term anymore because they don't know that it fits them because their view is so beyond equal rights. For women, it's equal rights for sexuality or gender. And so in terms of gender, I don't think there's anything wrong with redefining it. I just needed a dictionary so I can help get up on the cause.
That's understandable.
So they're like super feminists, like the supernatural almost, like they're beyond feminists. They're above.
Where the term,
so feminist, they're above it.
This is where the term social justice warrior comes from.
Yeah,
because
social justice.
There's less of a concern with equality and more of a concern for social justice. And it kind of changes the game a little bit.
Well, I don't think there's less of a desire for equality. It's just that it's pushed on beyond equality, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think it's in that direction, but it gets applied in such a way that it's. When you say beyond equality, I think it's beyond to an extent where it can't really be called that anymore. It's something else.
Like what makes things equal? Like we all pushed for equality at one point, you know, and you could argue whether or not people have equal pay, and you can argue whether or not women are represented in boardrooms and government and all that stuff. But it's almost like they're onto like a power struggle. So it's like equality, like a power equality. I can't even define it. I'm sorry.
It's become closer. A lot of the focus I see is more on equality of outcomes rather than equality of opportunity.
The word that they tend to use is justice. And it's like, for example, you might be able to sum it up in the reparations discussion as to whether or not justice, like, because is giving out reparations for slavery an equality issue? Not really. It's a justice issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, I agree.
And like a lot of the opinions that a lot of these people have that are more interested in expanding beyond equality into this other realm, that realm can be described as a bigger concern for justice.
Oh, interesting. I like that.
So these people, the people who are interested in redefining. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think some of them are just sort of very confused. I think some of them are also kind of act like they're. I think some of them are being persuaded by their peers. Like they have some peers who are very into the social justice thing, and then they just get highly persuaded into it, and they kind of don't even realize what they're into. You know, I feel like sometimes it kind of screams that, because I don't think overgeneralizing them is sort of being super, only for justice is sort of fair. I think the things that I think.
mean, it's a thing, it's like, oh, what do you guys stand for? Justice. Well, who would want to stand against justice?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Never mind the forms that justice can take.
I want to walk something through. And somebody said earlier, and just give me a second to get there, though, that they don't understand how air conditioning could be a feminist issue.
Oh, yes, that was me.
I'll walk you through this. Like, biologically, men give off more heat. The reason they give off more heat, and therefore like cooler environments, is they have more muscle mass than women. Muscle actually gives off more heat than fat.
And they're sexier.
With that said, if you have an environment that is cooler or more conducive to somebody who gives off more heat than conducive to somebody that gives off less heat, well, I wouldn't call it the biggest issue of the day. That in and of itself, by having it 2 degrees cooler, is specifically an example of preferring those who give off more heat than those who give off less. The point.
Okay, no, I understand, but
let me switch the issue on its head.
Hold on a sec. I just got one more thing. Yeah. The point of contention is, if you have a work environment then that is primarily male or primarily female, do you then turn up and down the dials based on the majority of your workforce?
Yes, that was the question I was about to ask.
Here's the way that you can counter it. Is if you wind up turning up the heat as a result of that conversation, you then might have a group of people who define turning up the heat as fat shaming.
As what?
Oh.
As fat shaming.
Oh.
Somebody's
I think what you do in that kind of scenario is you either put a jumper on or take a jumper off.
Well, that's asking you
to victim blaming. You can't victim blame.
Yeah, there's no winning, because they say, oh, air conditioning is sexist. Yeah. Oh, we solved that problem. Oh, you're fat shaming. Oh, you're being sexist to the disabled.
It's whack-a-mole.
Hang on.
Sometimes I agree that all this social justice is getting dragged onto things it shouldn't even be dragged onto. It's there, yeah, but I wouldn't say it's on like this, all this on this huge scale. I'm not aware of any sort of things happening here locally where I live where it's like that. So
I just want to say a couple of things just in support of these crazy ideas. Okay, is that all right with you, Nadia? Or do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
I suppose it's a kind of a yes or no question. Is it that the normative component of radical feminism, as opposed to the sort of analysis of the source of women's gender oppression, is what you try to refer to when you what about the radical feminism, or is it just the sort of colloquial usage of the word radical to mean extreme? Go ahead.
She's right on to there. It's the same thing when people assume that feminism is only about women or some shit because it has fem in there, Just
I'd
really.
say that's kind of the original meaning.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
Well, the original meaning has the sort of factual component, declarative component of the statement regarding the sources of in fact all oppression and such, and not just a normative component. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I remember the original definition and where feminism actually comes from, like, it doesn't really come from like a female-centric sort of
Yes, it does.
definition. Yeah, it
Yeah, it
does.
totally does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, you're kind of like, I don't like, you're kind of applying this subjective interpretation that you're trying to proclaim as like the original de facto interpretation. Doesn't make any sense.
The original definition of feminism would be elevating women's rights to be equal to that of men.
That sounds about right to me.
Well, there you go. The part of the equation is men, so it's
Not necessarily.
That's
If you look
right.
at the dictionary
Liberal.
today, you'll see a second definition. That definition being, advocacy on behalf of women's rights and interests.
That's what I said. It's elevating women's rights to be equal to that of men. In that definition, you have an assumption. Well, I understand what you're saying. Hold on. But I'd say what you just said is the same thing. In elevating women's rights to be equal to that of men, you're under the assumption
that smacks heavily of liberal feminism, which is a particular kind of analysis or factual normative position and such. Right? Go ahead.
I agree. That seems to fit the definition of liberal feminism. But I want to talk about air conditioning for a second. Is that all right with everybody?
Air conditioning is super important,
You
No.
fat shaming person.
I will risk
Please,
fat shaming
this
just a
sparks so much
second.
discussion.
So I can see, right? I don't think that, like, pointing out that air conditioning is a small example of, let's say, I don't know, systemic bias, in that the standard is the male, necessarily means that all kinds of things must be done about it, right? So I don't think that, and I don't know, because I've never heard this air conditioning argument before, I don't think that there are a bunch of therefores following it. I think that it may be just used to point out how the standard is the male body and the male form and blah, 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 right? Like tools. Like, I can't use frigging tools because my hand's not strong enough. And there aren't it's difficult to find small enough tools. Like, you've got to go to specialty stores and things like that to find small enough tools that I can use effectively, because my hands are small and I don't have the grip. But tools are designed for the male, and so are car seats. They're designed for the male. So I have to do all kinds of extra shit, right? It's not that I think that society needs to do something about that. And I do get cold. I get cold, right? I bring a sweater. So it's fine. It's not a big deal. I bring a sweater or a jumper, right? Or, if things were reversed and, air conditioning was always too hot, men would be able to take their shirts off, whatever. The point of all that kind of superfluous, trivial things is just, I think, to show that, in fact, there is this standard that can be easily overlooked and not noticed. And it doesn't mean that we've got to make laws about air conditioning degrees and things like that. That's the way I feel. That's what I think that's about.
Sadly,
however, the thing is, the male standard is not ubiquitous in the world. For example, women's magazines. I think it would be quite foolhardy of me to barge into the editor's office of a women's magazine and demand that I be catered for.
Yeah, because I'm simply not part of the target audience. That was trying to, I don't know, maybe trying to answer to the problem that was recognized that general magazines, aka magazines designed with the male viewer in mind, in other words, the regular magazine, didn't speak to women's issues. So that's what they're trying to say, is that all these things that appear to be standard, appear to be normal, appear to be average, are actually male. Right? That's all they're saying.
You're being homophobe, Helena.
Well, basically, what you're saying is that basically what feminism is originally for, that is basically giving women advantages in society the same that a man has, basically. Yes.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that this defines feminism. I'm just saying I can see why somebody on Tumblr or Twitter or whatever would go, look, everything's always too cold. Oh, that's because it's, what do they say, systemic, that the standard is the male, and people don't notice it. They're not saying we need to make laws or anything like that. They're just pointing this out, and I don't think that they're wrong about that. I mean, you guys would have to agree. I think.
The word is
Some of them
sexism.
actually do want to have laws like that passed.
The word that they use is systemic sexism.
Well, fuck it. If there was some type of an automated sort of gender-neutral kind of, what is it? What? I forget. You just used that word and it just slipped it right out of my mind right now. It's.
What were you again?
Well, I think the open office plan, etc., is it's also all part to blame for this because it doesn't allow for individualized climate control and such, right? So, I think in some respects there are some kind of capitalistic trends, etc., where the open office plan to save money or whatever it is in terms of the maintenance of the work environment and such is a large factor in this form of systemic sexism. But be honest, this does not seem like the what one of the larger issues to address. Go ahead.
I agree. It's totally trivial. It's trivial as like an issue.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Right? But there is something there, and that is that it's interesting that all of the things that are made for the average male. Right? So I've got to go look around for pink tools, and then all my tools have to be pink. Like, if I want to look for small tools, they're all pink. And I don't know how little people, like male little people, right? They have to use the pink tools. Right?
I have a set of precision screwdrivers with a solid black.
There. It doesn't mean it's a huge issue, or something that we all need to rally around or anything like that. But nonetheless, it doesn't also mean it's false.
The thing is, I'm left-handed, right, and I have to put up with all you right-handed, your right-handed stuff that you make. You know what I mean?
True.
But
that goes for everything. Like, you could say that the average is straight, white, male, right-handed. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the only perspective that we're all supposed to start from, and then everything goes out from there. That's really frustrating sometimes.
Okay, I understand that, but at the same time, I think it's worth noting that when you have that average that exists, it makes sense to market towards the average.
Well, except that numerically, I don't even know that that's the average anymore, or that's the majority.
I'm just going off of the assumption that it is the average, as you stated.
No, I said average. See, and I think that's a really interesting perspective. You could take it as mean, median, or mode. I think you took it as more of a median, and I don't even know if it's that anymore. So maybe
that's not what an average is. An average is a mean.
Yeah, I think you got mistaken there by a little bit. Yeah.
Wait, what is? I thought average
is a mean. I think it's a mean. I'm not sure.
The mean, the mode could be the average based on it appears more than one. I mean, it appears multiple times over something else. Those are all three types of averages.
Okay, well, I usually use the mathematical definition of average.
Which is all three.
It is all three.
No, it's not.
Whether you're talking about X bar or something else. It doesn't matter to my point. To my point is, it's actually, I know from the work that I do, and it doesn't matter, I don't need to give the precursor, that innovation and things that actually develop and grow usually happen when you don't start with the quote-unquote average, or in this case, the stereotypical.
All right, so I'm looking at what the mathematical definition of averages, and there are 3 kinds of averages. Or there is also possibly a 4th one, depending on how you play it. There's mean, median, mode, and range.
Okay, range. That was the 4th.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I had to go back to algebra for that one.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I can see that.
Yeah, well, but in effect, the kind of like, what is it being called? Like an innate body mass difference, etc., is actually kind of a radical feminist kind of analysis, right? Because it says the innate emphasis in gender as such, or some kind of root of the oppression and such, right? So go ahead.
Although I think maybe before applying a feminist narrative to everything, sometimes you have to look at it. Maybe maybe some things have nothing even to do with it and have nothing to apply it to, basically, I think. And maybe if you have a problem and just basically you have to get to the root cause of it, and it might not even be a feminist issue, I think, which is basically, I think, the greatest sort of argument people have today against feminism in general, which is basically they're saying that generally that feminism basically is misapplied towards things that are not a gendered issue and should not be part of a feminist issue.
Yeah, and I respectfully disagree. I think when I learned, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, that I think it was in sociology, in language gives us a lot of meaning, right? And so there's a lot of languages that have even masculine, or even more strongly masculine versus feminine. Like they have articles for each word, or each, oh God, person, place, or thing, noun.
Each noun.
Yeah, each noun, thank you. And so in our language, unfortunately, because we have this words for particular things and multiple words for it. And a perfect example is like we have maybe 3 or 4 words for snow. It's not that important to us. If you look at people who are natives to Alaska, they have over 20 different types of snow and 20 different words for it. And so in and of itself, language gives meaning and it gives importance. And so I'm wondering, in the feminist movement, I would think that a hard feminist could argue that it's even as rooted in our language.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm sorry. There's a lot of, say, legacy of, whatever kind of historical accident and such that's not really very, well, if at all, intellectually justified. And I think certain things that are, that kind of, basal conceptualization, I think, we can realize that the kind of implicit theory that came out of, whatever kind of accident of history got embedded in language and such, can very easily be inaccurate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add. Yeah, thanks. What Helen was talking about, I don't know, those examples, maybe the tools would have been good, but the car seats, you can only build the car seat for like the larger average, because if you built the car seats for the smaller average, they would be a lot more uncomfortable for the larger people, like the larger males.
Sure, I'm not suggesting that they are suggesting that they revamp car seats. I am just saying that they are saying that there is a standard and it's the male standard. That's it. Just full stop.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's just because of the male standard. I mean, it just if the women, I don't know if it's basically for males. It's just the larger build. And then with the air conditioner, I worked in a shop where there was one guy that worked across the aisle from me, and he was thinner than me, but we had the heater over both of us, and the door was right there, so the door would always open, so he'd turn the heat up. Well, I'd get hot, and I'd sweat, so I'd turn the heat down. Well, in that situation, I could only take off so many articles of clothing to try and get an even temperature for both of us.
Fuck it.
Where all he had to do, I'm in a shop, I got to wear long sleeve shirt and I got to wear work pants and a work shirt. Well, he could throw on a thermal top or another jacket and compensate for the difference.
Absolutely. So and you're talking about remedies and workarounds, and I do not disagree with you at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
100% I agree with you, right?
Yeah.
And it's easier for the person who's cold to put on a sweater, and it's easier for the person who's small to add a box. All of those things are absolutely true, right? And I don't disagree with them, right? I'm just saying that I think that I think the point they're trying to make is the one that I tried to rephrase. That's all.
I know, and what I'm saying is if they're going to make points like the tools, I understand the tools, okay? But the point, if they're going to pick if they're going to pick things, they need to pick things that aren't really just accommodated for certain types of body figures or body builds. More that there are, and I don't see where the seats are that way or the air conditioning is that way.
Yeah, you got a great point there, because on a certain level, it's not only biologically kind of gender issue, it's a general issue. It involves gender, yes, but it also involves other things, including personal kind of, variations in body size and everything. So, I mean, yeah. So kind of like overtaking the whole thing and making it the whole thing about gender. Yeah, it's sort of quite a deflective thing.
Yeah,
I agree.
I looked into it, but I'm sure there's other points out there that they can find that are specifically male and female gender that they need to fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say again, I'm not suggesting that they're suggesting that these little things need to be fixed. I just want to say that.
Helena, for the record, I put a link to the video covering that in the side chat.
Covering what?
Yeah, the
sexist
air conditioning, yeah.
Oh, God.
With over 20,000 dislikes, of course. Every time you do that, it's like, just...
Oh, it's Sky News, so that's understandable.
I mean, because on that point, it's that's just a matter of fact of nature, the size of the body. I mean, men can't choose to be larger than women on the average. So,
yeah.
I mean, if a man can choose not to act a certain way, so they need to attack those points and not just the naturalistic point.
Indeed. It's a good, yeah. Because when I, as a feminist, when I see sort of such trivial issues to having such great kind of coverage.
The behavioral dispositions and such themselves, naturalistic, natural phenomena. Go ahead.
You said the behaviorals are kind of a naturalistic?
I was wondering the same thing, Nadia, so I was waiting for someone else to answer.
Yeah, it's not like you said the behaviorals are part of naturalistic also. If you said that's what you said, I agree to a certain point. But there are a lot of behaviors that are taught. Like when you raise up your kids to have the boys play with the boy toys and the girls to play with the girl toys. See, I never raised my girls like that. I raised them both ways, and my girls, they're not. Neither one. They'll wear a dress, but they're not comfortable in dresses. They want to be pretty, but they're not always trying to be pretty. They're not. They fill both roles when they do things. They're not trying to be one role or the other.
What about your boys?
He doesn't have boys.
I don't have any boys.
I thought you said you had boys. I'm sorry.
Nope.
How do you know that? How do you know that Bob doesn't have boys? Bob, you have boys right now.
Christopher,
knows he doesn't.
Bam, sexism.
I actually listen when people talk.
My uncle, my cousins, they had 5 boys in a row, and they gave up after trying to have a girl. So.
Yeah, I guess when you have a basketball team at that point, you gotta give up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I did to maybe I was a little rude. I was just trying to be funny for a while. I wasn't trying to offend anyone.
No, and I was just giving your funniness back at you. That's all.
Christopher.
I wasn't offended at all.
Christopher, you're not in a room with Tumblr feminists. Don't worry, you can show your true colors.
What true colors? I'm just a funny guy who likes.
I know, yeah.
I refuse to go on Tumblr. I don't want any of that stuff rubbing off on me. I mean, gosh,
I'm on Tumblr.
Times I've been on there. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I feel so bad. Like the world is crying for help every time I go on Tumblr, from cutters to eating disorders to every disorder that's
suicide advocacy.
Is Tumblr designed specifically for like complaining? I've never even been there.
Much.
Why? No, it's.
What's the
I guess
tagline
it's
for
described
Tumblr?
as like
I wouldn't
a quasi blog site or something like that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Nadia, you're right. It is a long form blog that's very simple to use, and I wouldn't call it necessarily complaining as much as a way to try to express yourself and find people who have those common communities or interests.
Yeah, there's also lots of sex out there and shit. So,
I didn't know that.
It's just
lots of horny motherfuckers out there.
Yep.
I thought that
I'm
I thought that was 4chan.
It's a website that hosts blogs. That's all it is.
It's a long-form blog, but they do a really good job of connecting you with people who share your same interests or needs or whatever you'd want to call it.
Okay, so that's how it differs from like WordPress.
Yeah. Oh, when you don't have to write any code, you don't have to. Yeah, it's really.
Yeah, I've never been there.
Kind of thing you were mentioning. I basically kind of had a sort of early group of people that I linked with on Tumblr who seemed to post a lot of like graphic nudity and such, and I was just pretty much, spam me off of using it very much at all. I just can't really bear to look at my own Tumblr stream.
It's classic. It's classic. It's very well known for self-deprivations and and overtly sexual things being done there.
Yeah, I've never explored it enough to find that. Thank God.
I have. It's awesome.
You find very interesting things there sometimes.
But every time you go onto Reddit, like it doesn't take long on Reddit or 4chan to find it. That's my take.
Oh yeah, 4chan and Reddit.
Well, in that case, then don't go on Reddit or 4chan, especially 4chan.
Oh yeah, 4chan.
Yeah.
The worst.
Just go to B. Just go to B. You'll be fine. Just go there.
To what?
Or just go to
don't go to B.
Or I could. Oh, sorry.
God, I don't know any of these things. I don't know any of them.
I kind of. Oh,
go ahead, Nadia.
Okay.
I don't even
is
have
the
Facebook.
random
G
part
Plus
of
is
4chan.
G Plus is the only thing I got. I don't
Tumblr.
even have a Facebook.
4chan used to be legendary.
Yeah. I even though Tumblr, I think, allow me to, I guess, have more internal discussion in some respects in terms of the feminist theory and such. I think I kind of had such a bad starting point, so to speak, that I kind of wasn't really able to really get off the ground. Twitter, on the other hand, I ended up, I guess, making at least some links with, those who found common cause in, I guess, going up against TERFs. And
yeah.
I also talked to the TERFs, and I seem to be someone who, I don't know, they seem, however I end up doing things or something.
Nadia.
I'm sorry. I was finishing my sentence. It's something that the TERFs seem to, I guess, maybe find less offensive somehow. I don't know. Go ahead.
They like your approach, maybe. You know what's interesting? I've been complaining about this on G Plus already, but I thought, why not say it here since we're talking about feminism? So I tried to do something, and it led me to discover that I have been preemptively blocked by a group of feminists.
Ooh.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I don't even know, right? Like, So that's all. It's strange, right? On Twitter, I've been blocked, but I've been blocked.
Twitter, okay. I thought it was on Google Plus, huh?
No, luckily not.
I've heard that from like I think Evril said that, and then that lovely bitch, she said that too. And I mean, you think it's because you're talking against what they're trying to get out?
I have never even posted, right? So it must be some robot that looks at who you've followed.
Oh yeah.
Perhaps, right? And so that's why, yeah. So it was a little disappointing, I have to say, right? And because if anybody's sympathetic, it would be me, or at least I'm pretty sympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I don't use Twitter because I think these days Twitter is basically just used to like for shit flinging, basically. You know, you fling shit at people and then you get into huge fucking Twitter fucking rambles and you get into deep drama there. I'm like, I don't fucking have time for that shit, you know?
I got time for that shit.
Doesn't it suck? I think about what the guys at CERN with all their, beautiful, ideas of humanity and what the internet could be and how we could come together and all these positive, idealistic things. And look what Twitter is.
What form of Twitter are you using that you are finding it this negative? I'm completely perplexed because I get to see through.
Well, there's a light side as well.
Articles, and I get to follow people who are writing about interesting things related to food and exercise and thyroidism, and
Yeah, I can answer you. I can answer you easily. So I never used Twitter, and then I got interested for tangential reasons because of my kid in what the heck is Gamergate. So my introduction to Twitter was trying to follow people who were related to Gamergate. And that led to the feminism, anti-feminism. And so, right, so that explains it. And that also explains why I don't post, right? I just wanted to see, I didn't even know what Twitter was, and I was noticing that these Gamergaters and people were talking about Twitter and following me on Twitter and that kind of thing. So I joined in order to try to
stay away from them.
Yeah, disentangle Gamergate and atheism and anti-feminism and feminism and learn a little bit about it just by following people. Okay. So that's why.
Okay, that makes a heck of a lot more sense.
Yeah.
I call Twitter anytime a group of people is offended. I always go to Twitter because it's going to be the funniest things you've ever heard. Like, people will say the dumbest stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Come alive on Twitter after them.
Yeah.
And so I laugh.
Yeah, the other thing,
let's be fair with
the
with 140
you
characters.
don't follow the atheists.
Sorry, go on.
I don't follow the atheists.
I was just going to say, you don't follow the atheists either, right? So
not on Twitter, no.
There are
Most
some
new atheists are pro Gamergate, yes.
Yeah, so the Gamergate and the atheists sort of overlap, and there's an awful lot of negative tweets in that.
Drama. And
drama, right. So, you're lucky.
Oh, yeah, my Twitter's... That's like more my Google Plus than my Twitter.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, to be fair, 140 character limits does not leave much room for nuance and intellectual discussion.
They changed that. It's going up to 10,000.
Oh, awesome.
10,000?
That's over 9,000.
10,000 what?
That is a horrible decision. That is
10,000 character limit. The only thing I was like, well, what's the difference now between Twitter and Instagram? They're basically the same dang thing now.
I have no idea. I don't know about Instagram. I don't know how it works.
If you write a paragraph, how the fuck is that a tweet? What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to be reading 10,000 characters either.
Yeah.
Well, you can just skim through them. You can just
the walls of text on Twitter.
I would very briefly like to touch on those feminist sex wars, like late 70s, early 80s, because I think what a lot of people are going on about in their kind of opposition to feminism is actually the anti-side of the feminist sex wars, right?
Yeah.
When going on about the third wave and such, the third wave is actually not on the anti side. And for instance, but look, check out this, and of course, I guess that's mostly going on about like pornography or whatever. But I think the what is it, third wave or some such is got some kind of additional affair with it's let's see, third wave. Okay.
I like how you have Marxism.org opened in other tabs.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here we go. Basically, like, people are saying that or what they oppose about feminism are like repudiated by the third wave, right?
Yeah.
For instance, third wave is pretty much pro-trans or whatever, and not sure whatever else. So you pretty much have.
But now we have
like, what is it? Sovereignty over one's own gender role and such. Quote unquote, if you want to be traditional or such, you can. Basically, you should have like choice to be so and such. I mean that's in the third wave, right?
Yeah.
It's repudiation of that anti-side of second wave, the Haldane sort of thing that you kind of had to reject. Who knows what means, like political lesbianism, some kind of like Andrea Dworkin thing, or like all sex is rape or something like that. It's like, come on. Yeah, third wave pretty much said, no way to that stuff, right? So
Dworkin is not a third waver.
Dworkin is not even representative of the second wave. The second wave's got good people, good ideas in it, and all that, but there were some bad ideas floating around too, like the anti-side of the feminist sex wars, right? So.
Yeah, but you don't want to no true Scotsman her, right? I mean, she calls herself a feminist, right? You would just say, well, she's not a real feminist, or
she is not the same type of feminist, basically.
Not a real one. I'd say she had committed some errors or whatever it is, and her positions on sex and whatever. Go ahead.
Watered down feminism.
Whitewashed feminism, yeah. There's also whitewashed feminism sadly as well. Yeah. Which is why I'm intersectional. Yeah.
I've never heard of what is it, whitewashed? Hey, is that something to do with like a? Oh, sorry. Say it again.
Whitewashed as like race blindness, like that they think that white women suffer just as much as black women. That shit.
Oh hell no.
Yeah. I disagree with that stance as well.
So you think that could be untrue?
I know it could be untrue.
It's, as a matter of fact, I think factually it's untrue.
Yeah, this is the way I know it to be untrue. When I get on the phone and I start talking and we're having our conversations and blah, 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 you can tell at most they know you're a woman and you're going to get some challenges from that. But then when they meet my ass and see I'm a black woman, it's a different level.
Let me guess, their eyes start being like, they look at you weird, let me guess.
No, I don't.
You don't get the looks?
Well, it's not that they look at me weird. I think they're initially shocked that I'm black.
Oh. That's
right?
fucked.
Like, in their mind, they were talking to a white lady before.
Like, I can understand them, actually. You sound like... yeah.
Don't say it.
Yeah, don't.
That's racist. Don't say it.
Don't
you sound eloquent. You sound very eloquent and very intelligent.
Right. And that's
so articulate.
Didn't say that was worse than calling me a white lady. It's because then you're saying that white people sound eloquent and articulate.
I'm such a horrible person. That was horrible.
They're articulate, and black people are not supposed to be articulate.
You're just about as articulate as Obama.
Right. Right.
You're so well spoken.
We all make mistakes.
Well spoken. That's the other
You
one.
speak very good English.
Yeah, come on here, man. You're supposed to be talking ghetto. Come on.
I know. Actually,
I
know.
Stop being like
This is the stereotype that always apply. This is the stigma. Sort of.
Stop being anti-ebonics.
Well, but this reminds me. This reminds me of Drag, who talks about how he has two different ways of speaking.
Yeah.
Right? And you know, so what the hell?
It's called code switching.
Code switching. That's the exact phrase he used.
Oh, that's the official term? Okay. I'll just remember that, put that in my little diary, my dictionary.
Chris,
my
you
private.
ask somebody.
Okay, I didn't know that there were all these secret codes and
by the way,
and definitions of words.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
I do that. I tone switch, but when I tone switch and attitude switch, it's to any stranger. Because I try and put off this little appearance that I'm kind of meek and mild, and I find that people treat me a little bit better when they think I'm meek and mild than if I were to come off as harsh, you know?
Yeah, I was just about to say, this is
We all
not
have some of that.
something we all do to an extent. Like, when I speak with strangers, I try to tone down my cursing, which I tend to do a lot.
That's probably wise. Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah, I very rarely curse, but when I do...
Yeah.
You just go off the walls, balls, insane.
She uses words like gosh darn and frickin' and
I'm not as I'm like I would have done that as well. I'm just not that fluent in English, sadly. Yeah. Yeah.
What's your native tongue?
Hebrew/Russian, more Russian. I know Russian better than Hebrew.
That's cool.
So, what you're saying is that you're a Jewish Russian?
A Russian Jew.
Ukrainian Jew, to be more specific.
Yeah. Cool.
Sort of like the reason why my English is not perfect, and sometimes I make very foolish sort of.
You moved to the wrong country to learn English. You moved to the wrong country to learn English in the first place. Them damn
No,
Canucks
he's in
don't speak.
Canada.
Yeah, them damn Canucks don't speak no English.
Aw. Wow.
Yeah, there are very few Americans who speak English.
Yeah, I heard there's a difference generally in how people speak English in America and in Canada.
Or England, but yeah.
Yeah, England is awesome. Like when I hear it, like the actual British English, like I can't just comprehend anything. Like I'm completely fuckered. Basically, I'm just like, what are you saying right now?
One thing I never understood is why Americans call the bathroom the restroom. I mean, I understand bathroom in the context of a public place is not any more apt than restroom, but I'm not just going there to rest, am I?
You're going there to relieve yourself. That's a rest.
No. The proper term is laboratory.
Well, I think if you're
lavatory,
constipated and taking a shit, calling that rest is kind of like, I don't know.
I don't know. I have no clue what they call it, but why we do that. I just think it sounds better to say I need to use the restroom than I need to go take a dump.
I need to go to the toilets.
Yeah.
I have to go to the John.
Yeah, George Carlin had like a whole like stand-up about that topic. I think it was like the pussification, like not the pussification, but like sort of like how words can like be completely kind of reworded.
Oh yes, I saw that. That was very good.
He's an awesome linguist, George Carlin.
He was an awesome linguist.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, his stand-ups are just awesome. They're classics. I would say. And also I want to before I wanted to plug in. I've made a hilarious new video on my channel. If you guys would give it a look, if you know, give it a thought, you know, leave a comment down. You know, it's pretty funny. I tried pretty hard on it, but yeah, my acting is not on par with, you know, actual good acting, because my acting is shit. But you know, I've tried to entertain you guys.
Well, there is a sales pitch I've ever heard to subscribe to a channel.
Yeah.
You're going about it all wrong. You gotta say that, you know, the Christians use the downvoting bots, so we need to combat them. So rate, subscribe, and comment.
Yeah, man. Rate, subscribe, and fucking comment on my video.
Jewish, Italians, Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Russian.
I like my
English American.
English American. Okay, that's. I think it's just American in that case, but.
Okay, so you are Jewish, Russian, Canadian, American.
Jewish Ukrainian. Every time people assume I'm Russian. Every
Stop
time.
denying his cultural heritage.
Ukrainian.
Excuse me.
Ukrainian.
But I thought that Ukrainians speak Ukrainian.
Yeah, well, some of them do, some of them don't. I am one of the people who don't speak Ukrainian because I never learned it.
That's why I could see the mistake happening.
Indeed. I need to learn it. I just really want to learn it. I really need to, because, you know.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, there are a couple of like differences in the way they use the alphabet. I think like the Russian hard B isn't present in Ukrainian, or it is, or something.
Yeah, we're all like, oh no.
Cyrillic is not my strong suit.
Well, on my latest video, if the title is not gonna bring me views, I have no idea what will, because the title is just such a clickbait title.
What is the title?
Wait. Also, there's a problem. I cannot apply tags to my videos for some reason because my Microsoft Edge is just.
Wait, what's the title of the video?
Professional MRA Victims of Gynocracy 2015.
Yeah,
okay, I'll give that a look.
I'm not gonna bring you views.
Yeah, that's an old video.
Actually,
no, it's a new one. It's
in order to form the, well, in order to form it as a prefix, it would be gyneco, like gynococracy, instead of gynocracy. Go ahead.
Again, you correcting me on it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, brother. Where is your YouTube channel?
Brother Ned. Just search Brother Ned, bro, and yeah, you're there.
Okay, sure. I wasn't sure if your G+ name was the same as your.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gynococracy, you say?
Yeah. GYNECOCRACY.
Sounds patriarchal. Part of patriarchy.
Well, it would be matriarchal if
yeah, it will be a matriarchy.
Symmetric, but yeah, basically it's kind of.
Oh, therefore
Greek.
it's patriarchal.
Well, it's using Greek instead of Latin. Well, actually, I think matriarchy
I can just
actually.
say gynarchy. I can just say gynarchy. What? It's easier. Gynarchy.
Gynarchy. What the hell is a gynarchy? Someone has to explain that to me. Teach me how to properly understand patriarchy.
No, the word is patriarchy.
It's basically what happens when females. It's basically pussy power taken to the complete extreme and becoming the sort of.
Okay, so what is the most?
Hold on a sec. If you want clickbait for videos, hello, brother. If you want clickbait for your videos, don't use gynocracy. Nobody knows what that is. Put pussy power in the title. For fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, listen to the.
Yeah,
listen to the.
That's true.
Listen to the sister.
Listen, she's a marketing expert. You should listen.
That's good. Gynocracy is just like a short, simple kind of way, though, to say
It's not short and it's not simple. How many? What are they called?
I never even heard of it.
Rolls off the tongue.
Somehow strikes me as a bit crass, but yeah, I mean.
Okay, of what?
Is there,
pussy power or pussy power?
Well,
yeah,
what are you
I never.
really saying there? right? In terms of, is it some kind of like, what is it? Sex is some kind of bargaining chip or something?
Yeah, I never even heard of that word, so I'd probably pass by the video, figuring there'd be a bunch of other shit I never even heard of in it.
If you've never heard of it, you should look up the Sandman.
I'm sorry, Naive,
Oh,
most
yeah,
of the words that come out of your mouth just don't make any sense to most of us because they're too advanced.
They're too advanced for our just...
our puny minds.
Yeah,
so we need
exactly.
something like pussy power to understand.
Dramaturgical circumspection, supervening on deontically performative functional picture is probably one of the better ways to filter out the audience and all that. Go ahead.
By the way, Nadia, when my mom walked in the room, the first thing she said is, "Who is that lady?" And you were on. She said, "Who's that lady?" So.
Well, that's not what my dad said. When he saw.
Oh, Christopher, no one cares about your dad.
Yeah.
That was mean.
Yeah, it was. I'm sorry. With me until I bleed.
Sandman is fucked, though. Sandman is fucked.
What is Sandman?
Yeah, he's the Andrea Dworkin of the Manosphere.
Indeed. Have you seen? Do you know who Grey Bloke is? Grey Bloke, I think.
I have not seen that. Who? No.
Oh, he made a great video about the Manosphere. The best video ever. Yeah, well, as much as he made a video about the also chemtrails, which was also funny. It's hilarious how he makes his videos. Very ironically, also. It's
I'm still waiting for. I don't know if the red pill has come out yet, or if it's still going to come out sometime soon. But I'm interested in seeing that.
So, professional MRA victims of pussy power 2015.
Well, you're an MRA victim too.
No, what is MRA?
Well, men's rights advocates.
Or is that men's rights advocates?
Men's rights advocates.
You're totally out of the loop, aren't you?
Okay, so this is really simple. Dickley versus Pussy Power, 2016.
Wow.
That's your title if you want people to watch it. Or you can even call it strictly Dickley versus Pussy Power 2016. But
wow, go to this woman.
Damn.
Other stuff is not going to get views.
I mean, can I hire you to name my videos?
How do you think I would?
Yeah, you gotta think.
Can you write it down, Hermine? Because I kind of can't hear you because people are talking over you.
Okay, let me say this. You gotta think of what the most common people are going to search for. That's right. This is sadly enough. And like dick, that's another name for obviously the male genitalia, whatever.
Oh yeah, the phallus. Yeah.
That's and so you think dick versus pussy. Then you add two adjectives to it to describe it, and it's better when there are alliterations. Those are powerful. Like basically, you have to think of your titles in terms of a tweet, and the shorter the tweet, if you can get it down to 4 words, you're like you want to tell a 6-word story with your title.
Yeah, that's just not the way I roll, I think. But...
Well, you asked for subscribers. I'm trying to help you out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know. It's
well,
basically
by declining her help, you are being sexist, brother. I'm sorry.
Come on, man.
Post a link.
Come on, man.
Post a link to your channel in the side chat, and then I don't know if there's a live chat going on, but also if there is, post it there too.
Done.
Thank you.
I know, whatever. Oh my god, I'm gonna laugh my ass off tonight.
Yeah, you will.
You will. It's very funny.
And see, you obviously got me frustrated because I said 2 curse words in like 2 minutes.
Oh, the video will probably make you say more curse words if you keep watching it.
Weeping, blooming, fucking fuckwit. Pussy Riot.
Well, I like Pussy Riot. I like it.
What's going on with YouTube? I go to your channel and there are no options.
That's weird.
It has your name and then it has uploads, and my only option is to click on uploads, right? It's what happened to the tabs across the top, where I could click videos and then sort your videos based on various things. And
you have lots of tabs open. Maybe it's basically RAM problem where
No, I don't see it either, and I've got like 5 tabs.
Oh, you know what it is?
Whoa.
Oh god damn it! That was loud. Yes, that's my intro.
Yeah.
That's my intro. My intro is very.
R.I.P. headphones.
He hasn't upgraded his YouTube to the newer version. Is all.
Oh, I didn't really.
That's it?
Can do that.
I'm also struggling with that video. Oh my god. And being sexy.
Eating a tasty Franken tomato.
Oh yeah. That one's about like the anti-GMO people. Like I tried to trigger them, but I guess none of them fucking fell for it. Although I even put Mike Adams in there as well.
I'm an anti-GMOer. I don't like him.
Oh no. I know. I get you. I get your treatments with it.
Bitten by a genetically modified tomato.
Well, I'm against the sort of like Terminator seed, etc. kind of affairs that the GMO types are doing. That as far as like some kind of bizarre political pollution other than of the products or some such, but I just can't really care. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, you can't care.
Well, my channel is basically I try to just make it entertaining as possible. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to put myself, my individual artistic kind of vision into it as well. So it's kind of its uniqueness. I try to do that as much as possible. Okay. Anyways, guys. I just put myself out there. Have fun. If you want.
Actually, I think there is something to explore in terms of standpoint theory and such, where apparently I am not aware of its full scope or its various varieties and all that, and they might be informative to at least hear what is being criticized by I don't know whoever else and such. I haven't seen any criticism videos, so.
Oh, you don't know about the criticism video of Steve Shives by King Crocoduck? That was all about standpoint theory, that feminism is sort of centered around standpoint theory, and then standpoint theory is somehow connected to identity politics, is somehow connected to intersectionality, is somehow a bad thing because it's an ideology. And I don't know anything about any of those terms. I don't really know what they mean. So I'm not prepared to make a judgment. I don't that's tough for me, right? What is all that about? So
yeah, at first blush, and I can't really speak authoritatively. I mean, the standpoint there seems to be addressing the kinds of factors that arise in terms of subjectivity of experience and all that are going to be some kinds of differences in knowledge and so on, right?
Yeah, the idea that the person in the lower status has a sort of a kind of knowledge that the person in the higher status has no access to, and so what they say about how they feel should be deferred to at least in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's kind of related to postmodernism in that their account might be true, or there is no truth, so the best you can do is ask them for their accounts and to collectively construct a truth based on the standpoint of all the people in this group. It's kind of the feeling.
Anyways, peace out, guys.
The idea there is no truth, that's kind of odd. I mean, usually epistemology it's kind of referring to itself as a feminist epistemology, have embedded within them some kind of theory of truth itself, right? It's like correspondence theory or coherence theory or whatever it is in terms of truth. I mean, one that say integrates subjective kinds of experiences and such. That doesn't sound so far off to me, but well, let's see. who can dig up what? And if you can perhaps enlighten me as to what's going on here. I mean, I primarily have arrived at what little I've seen of it through, I guess, primarily Patricia Hill Collins. You're aware of like a broader variety of the work involved that would perhaps help me get up to speed. Go ahead.
I am not personally aware of that. I don't think that you have to say that standpoint theory is directly related to postmodernism at all. I think that you can describe standpoint theory without that, right? So you don't have to hold that there is no truth or any of those sort of extra postmodernist things. So it's okay to say, as far as I can tell, based on rumor, that standpoint theory is sort of what you just described. Except that the person who has the special standpoint should be given deference, or maybe can be seen as an expert on the issue, that kind of thing. Because you don't know what it's like to live like that person, and lived experiences are important, and that is sort of the general feel that I've gotten thus far. I'm not familiar with the author that you just said. Phyllis somebody?
Oh, I'll spell it. I'm probably breaking up, so I'll get her name in the side chat. She's actually pretty thoroughly published to for like Google Scholar or LibGen or whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, so you'll put it in the side chat, maybe. Oh, you just did. Okay, Patricia Hill Collins. Oh, I've heard of her. I've never read anything, no.
Yeah, she's come up with the matrix of domination, etc., building on sort of ideas of vectors of oppression and all that. That was, I think, a very relatively useful contribution to sort of a intersectional framework and such. Right? Go ahead.
Okay, so I put her in my Google search, and so I've got her at least somewhere, so in a second I can go back and look at it. You said something in the side chat that was interesting, and that was that basically either it seemed to you that standpoint theory and intersectionality responded to one another, or at least what was it you said?
Well, I seem to have a notion that there was some kind of conflict or whatever between them, and that intersectionality seemed to be a refinement of it. But it seems that my assessment was entirely incorrect. It seems that they actually have some kind of interplay and such, and one apparently utilizes the intersectional framework to analyze standpoints being adopted by the various actors involved. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree. So what you just now said, which is different from what you had originally written, I agree with you. I think my cursory understanding is the same, is that they are, related and complementary, and not at all in opposition.
I don't think it seems to be as controversial as one might suggest, because it seems that, I mean, in terms of characterizing, what is different, distinctive, etc., about what's subjective viewpoints. Perspective is different from others. Why you don't have God's eye view? Well, there you go. I mean, you can obviously find the various kinds of factors in somebody's situation that render their perspective different. And okay, why is it controversial? Do you recall who was it? King Crocodile, you said, and
yeah,
I guess,
King Crocodile and Steve
Gary Edwards, I think, also.
Gary Edwards also, I think, has a problem with it. But the thing I was thinking of specifically was the King Crocodile, and you would think it might not be quite so controversial, but it certainly appears to be quite controversial. So I don't know, roots in critical theory and going all the way back to the reaction to World War II. I don't have enough knowledge to take a decent stand on that, right? I guess I need to learn more. But yeah, there does appear to be a kind of an oppositional trend that I haven't put my finger on because I'm lazy and haven't bothered to sit there and really watch their videos carefully, let alone do any reading. But I do get the sense that there's opposition there. Yeah, that's all I can say right now. I can't pinpoint, I can't describe it well enough to do justice to the opposition. I got to go AFK for a second because my husband just came in, but I'll be back in a second.
Okay, yeah. Critical theory says it's a school of thought that stresses the reflective assessments of society and culture by applying knowledge of social sciences and humanities. Well, I mean, how else do you carry out critiques of society and culture? It seems that the questions of fact related to such would necessarily be such fields as social sciences, humanities, and all that. So, I mean, you want to make up a sort of alternative institutional framework and a set of fields of study to address this kind of question. I think you end up in a situation where you, in effect, recapitulate the situation as it now stands. Go ahead.
Nadia, it's almost impossible to understand you with all that music playing in the background.
Ah, thank you.
I was speaking to critical theory and such, and it seems that the matters of fact where it is engaging in study, say in the social sciences, humanities, and all that, are in effect necessary for the project of critiquing society and culture. And if you say wanted to abolish those fields as they now stand, you would end up in a situation where you just rebuild the same thing over again. Go ahead.
Okay, I think you said if you abolish the fields of critical thinking, then you're just going to do things over again, but I don't know how to reply to that, so if there's anybody else.
Maybe he's more specifically referring to that Frankfurt school that's discussed in later paragraphs, and I'm actually not familiar with them, even though they appear to be, I guess, Marxist or whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking over my head. You have to wait for Helena, I guess, to come back. Seamus is here. Seamus could probably figure it out with you.
Hey,
but Helena
Seamus, hi.
Helena's husband just came home, so she went AFK for a bit.
Oh, welcome, Seamus. What's your thought on intersectionality, standpoint theory, and of course critical theory as well? Go ahead. Okay. Well, how about feminism as a whole? Go ahead.
Well, if we didn't have that, there'd be a huge population.
Huh?
Well, I was saying if we didn't have the feminist thing, we will have a big population. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, where those all came up was within the context of their kind of roles as subsidiary positions within various kinds of feminist theories. Go ahead. What do you have, Seamus? Why don't you like feminism? Is it Galatians 3:28, where there is neither male nor female in Christ Jesus. That would, in effect, commit you to a gender abolitionist stance, wouldn't it? Go ahead. Well, when cursing the earth, of course, Genesis 3:16. I think that's the one where, of course, well, the pain of childbirth and such is part of the whole curse of the earth, right? Go ahead. Oh, are you not able to come on mic, or? Sorry, go ahead. Okay, well, anyhow, yeah, I think, well, when there are injustices and such, and the, you know, say, some of the driving forces behind the injustice may have, you know, multiple contributing causes, are having disparate impacts, discriminatory, whatever it is, on the basis of gender. That's the kind of thing that feminism and such opposes, right? So I think in some respects you would kind of acknowledge at least you know, some of the core normative premises of feminism and such, but may dispute both the underlying factual analyses and I guess elaborations upon the normative positions too. Go ahead. It would really help if you could hop on mic, because I kind of need to, quote unquote, tap out and go hunting for material on this, I guess, more advanced standpoint theory. Go ahead. Oh, welcome back, Linda. And oh dear. Well, I mean, we can always go on with what is it? What is it in the New Testament? 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 8 through 15, and all that. They kind of end up being a little bit nasty and perhaps almost on par with some of the what is it? The whole thing where like the I guess what is it? The judicial intervention in the case of victims such as basically like raise a woman to a rapist. Go ahead.
Wow, I don't know those passages, so maybe you could elaborate on them.
Well, the Talmud actually, you know, ends up defanging it, or at least the way it kind of appears, or whatever it is, from, you know, like Christian translations and whatever else, all those terms. But it seems to actually happen that at least like King James or whatever it is kind of took things, you know, actually make it look that way. And of course, there's kind of like none of the rabbinical tradition in terms of how it's interpreted or applied is ever really considered in context, because they're playing some kind of civil scriptura, or who knows what game, or it's not a part of the tradition of whatever kind of Catholic Church. So, you know, they don't look at the Talmud to actually see what's supposed to happen there, but it still actually isn't very pretty. Even after the Talmud gets, not, I guess, pulls out a few of the fangs. I'll get the exact verse. Hang on.
It's okay. You don't have to look for the exact verse. We've got both Shamos and Ermine here. I can't believe I said that again.
That's all right. Shamos isn't talking, and I'm not. If you ask me verses,
I don't have them memorized.
Well, Seamus wrote in the side chat here that he doesn't think that feminism is biblically based, and that he just doesn't. Well, he didn't like feminism before he was a Christian, so the Bible actually has nothing to do with it. But he also doesn't think that feminism is biblically based.
I'm not sure that's what he was saying. I think he just meant that his dislike of feminism isn't based in the Bible.
Let me see here. I keep scrolling up. I don't like feminism. It's not biblically based. I didn't like feminism before I was a Christian. The Bible actually has nothing to do with it.
I'd also like to welcome Ozzy.
So I was curious, Ermine, how do you deal as a Christian and as such a strong woman? Do you see any conflict there? And obviously, probably you don't. And so how do you kind of resolve? What would you say to Seamus, for example?
Well, I wouldn't say anything to Seamus because we just disagree on a lot of things. But no, joking aside, I think that I'm a feminist who, from the standpoint of, I'm not a literalist as it comes to the Bible, so let me take that stance first. I think a lot of it is allegorical. It should be telling you ways of living your life, that sort of dynamic. And when we start to take some of these things literally, I think there can be some challenges to them. So I'm going to leave that there. With that said, I think there's a ton of room in the Bible, whether it's Deborah or, I mean, we could just look at so many leaders that were women. And then people might give, well, yeah, but that's when the men were away at war or this, that, or the other. And I'll definitely give some, they have a valued, I value their stance, and that is true on it. With it, though, I do believe that, like in a home, and as homes run well, I think men should be men and women should be women. So
okay, but what do you mean by that?
Yeah, as it relates to that, I think in my ideal relationship, I think guys have roles that they need to play, and I have mine as well. And some of it may be a little bit more, people could argue that it's more domestically focused or that sort of dynamic. I don't even care about those. Those are kind of trivial to me. But when a decision ultimately needs to be made and there's a tie, I think one way, he thinks another, I'm okay with giving him the tiebreaker.
In all cases or just in some situations?
I would say in all cases, knowing that, and I should probably put this caveat, that he still sees more than anything the value in my opinion and me being his right hand.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and I know that's not a very feminist type view, and I'm still a strong woman, right? So if there was a guy that would never listen to me, he just wouldn't be the ideal mate for me. And so that's not going to work either. That he has the ultimate decision making. I think he's going to consistently make the right decision because he's going to look at what it is that I like my perspective and weigh that accordingly.
It reminds me a little
Is
bit
that a cookie cutter? Sorry. Is that a cookie cutter mold for all, or is that a cookie cutter mold for all, or people have, I guess, the choices of their own roles and such. And also, I think, what is it? First Timothy chapter 2, and I guess if standpoint theory, etc., can also be touched upon. I think Ozzy may be better informed. Go ahead.
One thing I want to add to what Ermine said, I kind of agree with her on that point, because today I'm not sure exactly how much it was, but you had I'm thinking from what I've heard and what I remember, you had more arranged marriages where women were pretty much just given to a man. Where today the partners choose each other and there's a little bit more courtship in it. So they get to know how each one is going to treat each other, so you don't run into the problems where they're pretty much making big disagreements in their marriage, so that they have to really worry about who is making the major decision.
Let me just say, I want to thank you for supporting what I was saying there a little bit, Bob. But I think scripturally, I think there's a lot of support for what I said in a relationship. There's definitely a Proverbs 23 whatever woman, and I think that. But with that, there's also a way that a man's supposed to treat his wife. And one more further aspect is I do think that that's right scripturally, is the man, sadly enough, if you don't agree with this, but kind of has the last say. But it's based on him really acknowledging and having the right relationship with his wife. Sure, run away? What? Oh, Ozzy's leaving. Okay.
No, I'm not leaving just right away. I got a couple of minutes, but I don't have time to address the issues that Helena mentioned in the side chat. That'd be a long conversation.
We could do it some other time.
Sure. Well, I might be on later. But I want to say something about that, the alleged sexism in the Pauline epistles, like 1 Timothy and the pastoral epistles, Timothy and Titus, and those, because those are the ones that have those really grotesquely sexist passages about women have to listen in silence to a man, and a woman can't teach a man and stuff like that, and they can't like braid their hair and get all made up and stuff like that, and they have to be modest and that sort of stuff. I mean, I think those are grotesquely sexist passages, but those passages are actually what found in passages or in the epistles that the New Testament scholars now widely regard as pseudepigraphal, right? That is, these are epistles or letters written or forged in Paul's name, but not actually authored by himself, right? Of the 13 or so letters, 6 of them are thought to be pseudepigraphal. 7 are arguably authentically Pauline. And 1 Timothy and Colossians, which are the two that really have the sexist passages, those are thought to be pseudepigraphal, right, or Deutero-Pauline, right? And the only exception is there are 2 consecutive verses in Corinthians. I can't really recall where they are, but New Testament scholars happen to think that those are almost certainly later interpolations not written by Paul, because they're contradicted by other things said in that same epistle by Paul, and that Corinthians 1 is thought to be authentically Paul, and it's contradicted by things that Paul has said elsewhere in the authentic Pauline epistles. And further, apparently the style of the Greek is different in those passages, and his commenting about women there is completely out of place contextually. In fact, if you go back, I'm gonna have to Google this here. But if you go back, it's Corinthians 1 verses 34 and 35. If you omit those 2 verses, those 2 sexist verses from that authentic Pauline epistle, okay, you can see that the verses immediately before and immediately after flow together seamlessly. They make perfect sense. In fact, the whole passage makes more sense when you take those out of there, which is why scholars think, look, it doesn't make any sense. It contradicts something else in this very same epistle and in other epistles by Paul. The context makes more sense without it. The Greek is different, right? There's no reason to think that this is not an interpolation, that this was added later, right? So if that's true, and if it turns out that scholars are right that the other passages that are so sexist are to be found in forgeries, right, in pseudepigraphal writings, such as 1 Timothy, then we don't have to worry so much about what the earliest Christians thought and that it was sexist, right? Because as far as we can tell from the authentic Pauline epistles, Paul was actually very egalitarian. I mean, sure, he was a product of his time, but the egalitarianism he expresses about women in other passages shows them to be much more egalitarian with respect to women than the surrounding culture in which he lived, in Roman culture, right? And certainly Jewish culture, right? So the early egalitarian message of Paul in those epistles is one that de-emphasized sex differences, it de-emphasized ethnic differences, it de-emphasizes class differences, right? Especially for those who are like the most disadvantaged, the poor and slaves and women, all of those, right? That might actually explain a part of the attraction of the message of Christianity in its earliest days, right? Now, these ideas probably would have been contrary to widespread Jewish and Roman values at the time, and chances are, as Christianity sort of grew and spread, and maybe got watered down a little bit, those sexist values sort of infected Christianity, and those sexist passages were then written into those authentic epistles, and the forged epistles embodied those sexist values. But I mean, when I look
Can
at
I say something?
Yeah, sure. I'll just sum up. When I read the authentic Pauline epistles, it's the most egalitarian message with respect to women that I have read anywhere in the ancient world.
I think that explanation works, but I just don't think it's going to be a lot most Christians are going to want to implement. It kind of jettisons divine inspiration in a way,
Yeah.
and I think that I would agree with you on the nature, the pseudepigraphal nature of the 6 epistles that we're kind of taking collectively. So I would agree on that, but that wouldn't get me off the hook, because I still believe whoever wrote those would have been writing in the Pauline tradition, and still would be something that we would take for guidance. So I couldn't selectively choose or not. But I wanted to say one thing about the sexist verses in 1 Corinthians. If the only thing that the person looking over the passage would have is just the flow would seem to work just as well or perhaps better, that's known as a conjectural interpretation, which means that there's no text that actually supports, or other manuscript or other patristic source or anything that supports the interpolation besides the conjecture of the critic viewing that passage. So that would be conjectural interpolations would be some of the weakest interpolations, like the Josephus passage is more than conjectural because we have it quoted in a neutral form from an early church father, Origen, and then we have it quoted 100 years later by Eusebius in a interpolated form. So that would be a non-conjectural interpolation, which is much stronger in basis. Do you see my point?
Yeah, I do, and I would agree with it, except that in the case that I was citing, it wasn't just, if you take these 2 verses out, and slap the remaining verses together, you see they flow seamlessly. That's not the only reason that scholars give. That's one of the reasons that they think that that's an interpolation, that the passage makes more sense without this intrusion about women suddenly. It seems completely out of place and completely out of context, apropos of nothing in the passage. But it's also that the Greek apparently is different. That the form of the Greek in which it's written is not Pauline, is not consistent with the rest of that epistle, or the epistles that are considered authentic. And the other is, of course, it contradicts something in that very epistle.
Those are all strong evidences, but it would still fall into the ground of conjectural interpretation because it's not based in any witness itself.
Oh, okay, but I mean, that's.
Do you see what I'm saying? Because when you come across one that has basis in the witness testimony of the manuscript, it's a much firmer, right? Because it's obvious, right?
That's a demonstration of interpolation, right? But I mean, that's not how we normally do things, because we normally don't have those kinds of witnesses. And by witness, you don't mean like an eyewitness. We mean another text.
Right. A witness of a copy of a manuscript.
That's right. Yeah. In New Testament studies or in any textual criticism, a witness is just any text. Another text is considered a witness. because it testifies, literally. And oh, I'm getting flagged down here. The boss is telling me I gotta go. Can I just say one thing though? Helena wrote in the side chat that I'm sure that's going to make Christians feel much better. Oz, don't worry, it's fake. Well, not all Christians believe that you have to structure your life around the Bible on the assumption that everything in the Bible is true. I mean, Armin was just expressing that herself. I mean, she doesn't assume that every directive in the Bible is written for her, and a lot of Christians just think, yeah, sure, there's mistakes in the Bible. It's written by humans, and they wrote in a bunch of mistakes. Like, not everybody who's a Christian is a Bible worshiper. They're not all practicing bibliolatry. They don't all believe in biblical inerrancy. There are a lot of Christians who think, yeah, the Bible is chock full of mistakes and bad ideas, and there's fake writings in there. There are priests out there and ministers and pastors who think that the Bible is a human artifact that's full of fakery, full of fictive history and forgery, and it's our job to figure out what's what. And sure, people in the ancient world and in generations prior that didn't have the benefit of textual criticism weren't able to suss out some of these things, and so they made mistakes in what they believed. But so what? We know differently, and we don't have to be beholden to what they believe just because they also call themselves Christians, and they believe differently than we do now, right? We can in fact look at the Bible with the advantage of textual criticism and 20th century analytical tools and go, yeah, you know what? This does look like an interpolation. And it looks like earliest Christianity, at least as expressed in Paul, was much more egalitarian than what we find in 1 Timothy and in this particular verse in 1 Corinthians and in this passage of Colossians and so forth, right? So it seems to me that a Christian of good conscience can say, you know what, one of the things I find attractive about Christianity is that it had an egalitarian message in an age when there wasn't a lot of egalitarianism to be had, and that might have been one of the attractive features of Christianity. In fact, I'm not a Christian, but I think that one has to explain what was attractive about Christianity, and I think that this is one of the things that explains the growth and march of Christianity in the very teeth of a culture that would have opposed it. I think there was something that recommended Christianity to people, and I think it's this early egalitarian and communitarian strain within the religion is what did it. That would be my view. But I got to go. I'm sorry to just talk and run, but I'm in trouble. The boss. Good night.
All right. Have a good night, and I will need to get on that train soon myself. I think I maybe have. I gotta give myself about 10 minutes. Go ahead.
So, Seamus, what did you think of what Ozzy just said?
I like it.
Not his first point.
I pretty much told him what I thought, right? I said it right to him. I just told him that that's not going to be an adequate answer for any Christian that isn't willing to jettison divine inspiration in lieu of some modern feminist politically correct appeal. So I mean, if you want to be right with in that manner and you're willing to jettison biblical divine inspiration, then I mean that seems like a very bad trade to me, and it doesn't seem like anything that would I think in that trade you'd lose way more than you could ever gain, because you at the Bible, we're not even talking about inerrancy, we're talking about divine inspiration. Mm-hmm. See, the Bible could have errors in it and still be divinely inspired, but if you're willing to say that this doesn't hold because it's fake, that means that's not divinely inspired. That do you either be denying that the Bible itself is divinely inspired, or you'd be in the business of special pleading to certain books based on some certain criteria. And I think when you do that, when you give away biblical inerrancy, you've given away not biblical inerrancy, divine inspiration, you've given away everything. Because we need to assume that what Jesus said are actually in the same vein of what he said and are inspired in that same way. If it could just be thrown out and could be wrong, then I mean, anything is up for grabs, and you would have to build your own arbitrary standard to weigh things, and there would be no. And I think at the end of the day, for me, I even grant that 6 of the 13 Pauline epistles are very well. I would say 6 of them have dubious authorship, but it's possible a couple of those could be Pauline in nature. But even given that, I would think that the other 6 come from a Pauline tradition, and they would still be inspired and still carry weight just as much as anything Paul wrote. Even that it didn't come from him, right? It came from some Pauline tradition. Maybe someone later writing in his name after his martyrdom in Rome, like Mark, for example, who was thought to be his interpreter, or just whoever. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so that was kind of my take on it. I mean, and I would say that in terms of trying to special plead to 1 Corinthians 15, I'm not saying it's special pleading, but trying to say that this passage doesn't appear to be because of flow, and maybe it might have used some different words, or it doesn't strike people to be used in the manner that Paul used it or something. It's still really highly speculative when we're talking about 2 verses, because people make determinations like that off large passages and verses. Like the pseudepigraphal books are not determined off 2 sentences; they're done off the entirety of the text. So the more that you have, the more voice the text speaks to, and the more voice the text has is because you have more lines to go through. Now, if you're just trying to gather a voice out of 2 lines and say this voice doesn't sound Pauline, that's a lot of textual critics wouldn't appreciate that as much, because first, it's all completely conjectural interpretation, the fact that it's not supported by any witness, and so on and so forth. So there's just, I mean, only thing I could agree is Ozzy's solve will get you out of the problem, but you're going to lose way more than you gain, and I don't think a lot of Christians would be willing to approach it that way. And I could offer another way, another apology for the situation that wouldn't compromise your faith or doctrine or theology.
Okay. Well, but what about the possibility that the mistakes weren't made in the divine inspiration part, but just that pieces were lost, and later people did their best to put things together as best they could, but mistakes could have been made there. Like whole chunks could be missing that would serve to explain the things that Ozzy tries to explain one way, and you have different possible explanations in a different way. I mean, that could have happened, don't you think?
Well, we're not necessarily talking about mistakes. Like, we would actually be, not so much like the inerrancy of it, but we'd actually be talking about, like, are some of these books divinely inspired? Do they carry the weight of God with them or not? And what Ozzy was recommending is that these books, these 6 books in particularly, carry no divine inspiration. They ought not to be held to. You are in no way obligated to hold to these things. That's
well, at least not those 2. At least not those two verses that he was.
No. He was talking about 2 verses in 1 Corinthians, and then he was talking about 6 entire books of the New Testament, the 6 pseudepigraphal Pauline epistles. So he's advocating throwing 6 books wholesale out of the New Testament as not carrying any weight towards a Christian. 6 books out of the 27.
Right. Now, you're not Catholic, right?
Correct.
So, and is it true that the Catholics are the ones responsible for sort of composing the Bible or deciding what goes in and what doesn't go in and all that? Is that just a made-up story, or is that?
That's a made-up story.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. There's no historical truth in that.
So, how did the Bible get put together?
You're talking about the canon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who decided what was canon, and maybe they made a mistake?
God's people. Canon was basically put together over a long period of time, and it was there were formal decrees of canon much later after these things were already, they were like formalities. For example, if you talk about well, here, I'll give it to you the easiest way. the Gospels, the four Gospels, they were written anywhere from like 70 to like 95. Okay, and we have a guy by the name of Tatian who was writing, I think, in around 200 to 2. No. Tatian was writing around 180, 185. So about 100 years later, a little bit more, he had already comprised those four books into what's called the Diatessaron, which is basically like the fourfold gospel. He tried to harmonize all four of them. Then what you see when all the other books that came along, like the Pauline epistles, Revelation, and stuff like that, we have an early fragmentary piece called a Muratorian fragment that actually lists like 24 of the 27 New Testament books as being legitimate and canonized, and that was in 220, and that's called the Muratorian fragment. So you can see a progression as these things became to be more and more accepted based on the nature of the voice that they spoke to, and acceptance from the apostolic tradition and so on and so forth. So by the time that canon had already been, by the time it had been formalized in the 4th century, 300 some AD, after the Council of Nicaea even, so after 325, those things were nothing more than mere formalities. For example, so a lot of these great codices that we have, like Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus, these are 4th century complete manuscripts. So by the time Council of Nicaea rolled around, we'd already have full complete books in hand today with entire New Testament, all 27 books. What is it? I think it's Sinaiticus. No. Vaticanus is missing Revelation. But Sinaiticus, found by Constantine von Tischendorf, that one's full and complete, and that one dates to like 340, 350. So you can tell just by those codices that these things were already in play, being written up and composed as a collection before it was ever stamped and approved. So
what happened then? What happened at the Council of Nicaea? I think that there's a lot of misconceptions, or maybe people don't know, or I'd like to hear what you think actually happened.
Okay, there's two councils of Nicaea. There's 325 and 326. Most people, when they talk about Nicaea, they're talking about 325. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD had nothing to do with canon, nothing to do with all. The only thing it had to do was the deity of Christ. See, the deity of Christ was in question insofar as much as they wanted to know, was Jesus Christ of similar essence to God the Father or of the same essence as God the Father? There wasn't a dispute of whether he was, holy and a deity of some sort, but they wanted to see if he was actually God, and so that's what it was on. So and they I think it was about 100, 125 bishops and high ecclesiastical members of all of the early churches, or not all of the earlier churches, some of the earlier church traditions, and it went down to like a 99-to-1 vote or something similar to that. But what the thing is, there were Council of Nicaea, so they formalized that Jesus Christ is of the same essence, not of a similar essence as God the Father. He's of the same essence. So they formalized the deity of Christ, okay, insofar as that he's the same in the Trinity. So that's what Nicaea did. But what's interesting is Nicaea itself was only a formalization, because the deity of Christ, the very first we see of it, is found in the epistle to the Philippians, which was written around 55 AD, and in the 2nd chapter he actually says, Jesus, who being equal with God, did not consider his equality with God something to be held on to. And so, I mean, that's some of the early scripture that we have saying the deity of Christ. So Nicaea was doing nothing more than just taking all of that and formalizing it. I mean,
so they used that to support the idea of the Trinity per se?
What do you mean? They used what idea to support the Trinity?
Oh, you gave an example. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nadia.
That is, as I have to catch a train if I'm going to get back before, I guess the store closes or whatever. So.
All right. Be careful.
Yeah. I'll pull the plug at the last minute I can when I'm packing up. Go ahead.
They use all of that, Helena. So yeah, that's one scripture, and they use there's plenty of scripture. Like for example, that I was just that is just
I understand. They use a lot of different supporting evidence. But let me just ask this real quick question: was that the first time that the idea of a Trinity was I hate to say invented, but that for lack of a better word?
No, that's just a formalization of it.
So the whole Trinity thing got formalized at that time, and that's pretty much.
But it was already held to and believed in and stuff like that. They just formalized it as a doctrine at that point. But you know, the scriptures and the God's people and the early Christians had already, you know, in the early churches that were teaching these things that's what the tradition already was. But so it was more or less just a formalization.
Okay, and then what about the Second Council? What happened then?
The Second Council actually went over a few other tertiary issues that are not really important to any discussion. They were just handling other ecclesiastic issues within the church and theology that ultimately aren't very, like if I were to name them off, which I couldn't do it off the top of my head, but they're not altogether very important. That's why no one really talks about 326. They're always talking about 325. I mean, I guess I could look it up for you. It's not anything that's gonna.
Yeah, it's not important if that's not the one people are really talking about. I mean, not as important anyway.
So the deity of Christ was it's written all over Scripture. I mean, it's written in John 1:1 very, very well. And Paul does it pretty explicitly in a few passages. And I mean, even the gospel authors with really low Christology, like Mark, even makes allusion to Christ being God right at the very first verse of the first chapter, where he says, and there was a voice of John the Baptist crying alone in the wilderness, saying, "Make straight paths for the Lord." That's from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3, where it says, and the Lord God is commanding there to be straight paths built in the desert for him. And so anyways, the Mark starts off right off the gate saying, go ahead and make straight paths for God. He's already calling Jesus God. So, I mean, yeah, those things are all over Scripture.
So I've heard some rumors from, I guess maybe you call them fringe. I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge, but that the example that's standing out in my mind is that there's a Gospel of Thomas that there's a argument over whether or not it should have been included, and that somebody made some decision to exclude it, and that happened during some official meeting. So set me straight about that. Because there's some stuff in that gospel that I've also only heard, right? That would make the whole Bible read differently. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I do. So the Gospel of Thomas was a lost work for a very, very long time. We had knowledge of it. Due to a few patristic mentions. One of those patristic mentions is actually